only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer! Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters, where we're going to bring you the news and reviews of some wonderful brews. I am Dan Baker, joined as always by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
and our from entertainer,
Wayne Baker.
Well, today we're home.
Yay.
Yay! We're back in the Beer Busters podcast basement. We twice in the past year.
Twice in the past month.
Well, yeah, past month and past year-ish.
Before that, it was April.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with the
girls.
Yeah, girls from Stats and Stilettos and Sarah. Okay, well, we're home. I'm already nervous about what I'm going to say because we have somebody with us who I'm very happy is with us, but I'm going to sound like a moron more than normal.
I warned them.
This guy knows his shit. But, of course, we have with us Mr.
Oh, sorry, Josh Weikert. Nice to meet you all.
Josh, thanks for coming out here.
That's what I get for looking at my notes. I missed the cue.
It's cool. It's fine. It happens. Through the magic of editing, it might sound, no. Well, I already sound like a dick and a moron. So
No, you don't.
No, I don't. I'm just in my own head, and that's the worst place for me to be. A lot of good stuff is ahead of us. We've got a lot of beers that are on the table.
There's a crap
already.
ton of bottles on the table,
Yeah.
so you know it's going to be a good
1,
night.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
9,
10,
10, 11, 12.
Could have just stopped it. So, well, plus the one over by you, we already poured one. Speaking of pouring one, what is our sipping beer?
Well, tonight our sipping beer is Solaire Reserve from Forest in Maine. It's a Saison brewed with foraged yeast. It is delicious. It's 5% and
It's only 5?
an excellent. Yes, it's only 5%.
I'm all about the low alcohol beers. Yeah, I recently stopped by Forest in Maine to do an updated article and share the news that they are currently renovating the space next door. So they're expanding, looking for a larger space for people to just come and hang out and drink beer. They're going to have a space for live music. So those that have been there are familiar with the space. It's a small renovated home. It's kind of a tight fit, especially when the weather is cold. Everybody squeezes inside, so it'll be nice to have a larger, less formal spot for people to hang out. But I'm very excited that they're bottling their beers now, which last time, Dan, you and I were there together, bacon popcorn.
Yep.
They were not yet bottling. So, yeah, I'm excited. And they've really made a name for themselves, especially recently. But it's exciting to see going from being their opening weekend and how much they've grown over the last couple of years. And their grand opening was on my birthday. So
Even better.
I've always had that,
special connection
that
with them.
special connection
Yeah.
with them.
I
So
like
yeah,
this
this
beer.
is their awesome Saison.
Yeah. It's very light and a word I know you're fond of, Steph, effervescent.
Effervescent.
Perfect.
It's a good word for a Saison.
Perfumey.
Very herbal. I almost feel like I want this with Thanksgiving dinner.
Ooh. It could be a nice compliment to it.
Sure.
I should also point out that this episode is brought to you, of course, always, by Audible. audibletrial.com/beerbusters. You can sign up for your free 30-day trial of Audible, which of course will deliver audiobooks to you based on a credit system. So you get a free book for signing up for your free 30-day trial.
Yay, free.
Notice the word free. Free. It's my favorite 4-letter F word.
It's not mine.
Wow. All right. Mine's actually fork.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Funk.
Funk. All right. I can
That's
live
a
with
good
that.
one.
All right.
That's a good one.
All right. But of course, you can go and download any audiobook that you want, and Lord knows there's so many of them, because in this busy workaday world where nobody has time to do anything, people are not reading as much as they used to.
It's so sad.
You can have somebody read to you. I saw a statistic that apparently last year,
Oh, boy.
80% of families did not buy a book.
Wow.
And something
Does
like
that count ebook?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Is
Are you
any
talking about
reading
physical books?
material?
Probably not. But I wish I had this statistic in front of me, and I wish I would have thought ahead to look at this. But yeah, apparently 80% of families didn't buy a book last year. Something along the lines of 70% of high school graduates don't ever open a book again or don't ever finish a book again. And
Yeah,
like 50
33% of high school graduates never read another book.
So it is about college graduates.
80% of U.S. families did not buy or read a book last year.
Or read, even better.
Wow.
So, because we're all busy and don't have time to read, let somebody read to you. audibletrial.com/beerbusters.
We're bringing back literacy, damn it.
Wow. This is a very special episode of Beer Busters.
I believe that's what we call turning into the skid.
Yes, exactly. It's all controlled, I promise.
Wow.
And of course, you can always go to patreon.com/beerbusters.
Patreon.com/beerbusters, because this episode is also brought to you in part by our wonderful patrons who help us keep the Beer Busters train running.
Patrons who kelp us.
Yes, they kelp us and they help us. And they probably read books because they're good people.
And some of them give us beer.
Some of them do give us beer.
This is true.
From foreign countries.
Yep.
Including, but not limited to,
Aruba. Jamaica.
Ooh, I want to take it to Bermuda. Oh, we stopped. Yeah.
Not that this train always stays on the rails, but if you want to help us keep this train running, you can go to patreon.com/beerbusters and get cool perks for being a patron.
We could be like the train from Back to the Future 3, where it starts on the rails, but then like flies, because Doc Brown fixed it up.
And we'll name our children.
Hold on.
Jules and Vern.
Flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor.
Yes.
She knows what it is. My God.
Are you proud?
I am. Wayne, are you proud?
I am so proud.
All right. Steph, you made us proud.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I think in that light, we should do this. So there's been a little shakeup in the local beer scene, and I wanted to cover this for the news segment this time around because I think this is the biggest news that we could have to offer for former and recurring guests on the show. So to help with the news, we have a man who needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. We have International Trevor, of course, from Evil Genius. Trevor, thank you for joining me.
Good to join you too, man. How's it going?
Good. It's been a while. How have you been?
I've been doing really well, working hard.
Good. And there's big things that are coming down the road for you guys, so your hard work is paying off, which is great to see. But there was an article that broke recently, and it may or may not have been sanctioned by you guys, but I guess the cat's out of the bag, so you guys officially have your building, right?
We have. So we bought a property down in the Fishtown section of Philadelphia, just right on Front Street. So it's going to be a while before we actually kind of get it into fully functioning shape and be open, but we're making our moves to locate in the neighborhood, and we're in the process right now of actually replacing the roof, which was in pretty poor condition when we bought the building. And then after that, we'll be starting the, regular construction of building a brewery, which is exciting times for us. It's a long time coming.
Yeah.
And we're very excited.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy for you guys. I mean, I can't say congratulations enough.
Thank you, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a long road to get to here, but we're very happy we're getting to this point now, and we're excited to actually get it open, be able to do some different styles of beer that using the kind of contract model that we're in right now that we can't really do. So we're going to have definitely a big barrel program with sours obviously and everything in between as well.
That makes me so happy to hear. And I know if I heard right, John is going to be basically getting the whole thing together. He's designing the brewery and is he designing all of it or just the brewery?
Just the brewing side. So the way our building is kind of set up is that it's naturally divided into two areas. And so one side will be production for, where all of our brewing equipment, et cetera, will be. And then the other side is will be kind of the bar and, seating, et cetera. So he's in the process right now and with me designing, where everything goes on the brewing side. And we're working with an architect to put all of that together then as well.
That's really cool. I know you said you're going to have the barrels to do all of the sour stuff. I know John's been, or at least it seems like since John's come on board, you guys have done some of the limited release stuff. I know you had Hanshot first, and there was another one that was like peanut butter jelly time.
We did a firkin of peanut butter jelly time for the event down at the Grey Lodge last November for their Friday the 13th.
Oh, okay.
But you're right, we're doing a lot of like single release draft only beers. It's something that I wanted to do for a long time. And we're kind of at the point now where we have the right distribution to be able to do that. So it's just one batch of beer that we make, which we brew in 40-barrel batches, and then that just goes out to select wholesalers and then obviously select accounts. So we kind of pre-sell all of it, and it's been working really well so far. The next one of those coming up is a lemongrass IPA, which will be out in April. And that one's called Everything's Coming Up Millhouse.
Of course it is. That's awesome. I love all the Simpsons references, and of course the Family Guy references with Shut Up Meg, which I saw Shut Up Meg is coming back soon, right?
Yeah, we literally just finished packaging it on Friday, so it'll be hitting stores actually the following Monday after this episode airs.
Oh,
so,
great!
I'm really excited. It's certainly in my top 3 favorite beers that we make. So I'm excited to have that back and get to drink it again.
Yeah, I bet. And I had for Christmas, Steph got me a 6-pack of Purple Monkey dishwasher, which was gone pretty much the day after Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah,
that one's still going strong for us.
Good. I would hope so. I mean, I've gone on record many times to say that's my favorite beer.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and you're not the only one. We have a lot of people who buy that beer. It's our number 1 selling beer at the moment.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah, so which is absolutely awesome and kind of funny given how it's unique. So I feel like you either love it or hate it, but apparently a lot of people love it, which is great.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, how can you not? I mean, I have to be honest, I don't think I've had anything that you guys have put out that I didn't like, which is fantastic and hard to do.
I like to hear that.
I would imagine. And it seems like John's doing a lot of good stuff. Now, what's the scoop on this one time at Bandcamp?
So that is our double IPA, which we released in February, so about a month ago now. And the idea behind it is that we will release it few times a year. So I think we've tentatively scheduled it for a June or July second release. But each time we make it, we're going to be using a different blend of hops. So giving people the opportunity to see how a 8.5% IPA, which has the same base malt and profile then from that side of things, but how it kind of tastes when we use different hops. So the one that came out in February was all Simcoe. And then the one that comes out in June, I'm not sure John has actually confirmed what he wants to do there in terms of hops, but it's kind of interesting to see how those hops, the flavor profile kind of comes through depending on what hop you use.
That's really cool that you guys are doing something like that, because I know when I was first getting into craft beer, I didn't understand that different hops could make the flavor. In fact, I think one of the early episodes of the show, I asked somebody why they picked a certain hop, and then it kind of clicked, and I got like dumbfounded looks around the table, which made me glad that podcast was not a visual medium. But yeah, I had no idea different hops could make it taste different. So I love that you guys are doing that. Plus, it kind of creates more of a demand, I would imagine, because I know I'm dying to get my hands on it, and my local Acme does not have it. So I think you should yell at those guys so they can buy it from you.
I will. I'll see what I can do, man.
Okay. That Acme has been a godsend for the most part. Although I was there 20 minutes ago, and they had Evil Eye and Purple Monkey dishwasher. So
okay, good.
At least they still have good offerings from you guys there, but they need to catch up on that. They need to get that. I need to get that. I mean,
it's only been out now, 3-4 weeks maybe, so it should have filtered down to them by now. So I'll definitely look into that. But you should be able to find it in quite a number of other places too. So
I just got to branch out a little bit.
Should be good though.
Very cool.
Yep.
Well, I know you probably don't have an idea when everything's going to go down. And I know the article that leaked gave a false timeline. But I know you guys have your work cut out ahead of you, and I'm very excited. And it's been very cool to see you guys grow from when we first had you on, what was that, 2 years ago now? And it's awesome to see that you've added so much to your repertoire with just now the, 5 of you, which is great. And I think you have a fantastic team. Everything is coming up Millhouse, I guess.
Absolutely. So we're very excited. So we got some other new beers we'll be doing later this year too, and I think by the end of this year, Hanshot First is going to come back out bottles as well as draft, because that one was really popular for us, and that's kind of what we try to do. We try to release something on draft, see if people like it, and then they do. We bring it back kind of later on that year or the next year, and do it in bottles too. So I'm excited to do that.
Cool, and I still can't wait to own an Evil Genius growler. That's going to be the prized possession.
Absolutely, and those will be coming very as soon as we're open, obviously. So, and that'll be, I'm not sure when it'll be, but it'll be as soon as we can make it happen. Anyway,
it's cool. Well, somebody else leaked the article for this time, but we have to be first for when we have a date.
Absolutely.
All right, good.
I'll definitely commit to that.
All right, cool. Even if it doesn't happen, I'll forgive you, because you guys are going a mile a minute, and it's great to see, because you guys deserve every bit of success that comes your way, and I'm glad that we got to see you guys grow, and I can't thank you enough for getting me drunk more times than anyone probably should.
No problem. Anytime, man.
Cool. Well, Trevor, thank you so much for joining us for this little bit of an interview, and we got to have you guys back on the show. It'd be cool to have all 5 of you if I can figure out the mic setup, but it'd be awesome to have everybody on the show.
Absolutely, and if we don't get an opportunity to do it beforehand, we'll definitely have to have you down and do a live show from the place once we're open.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be awesome. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Congratulations on the spot. I'm glad everything's going through and going well, and I can't wait to see it happen.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Cool. Trevor, thank you so much.
Have a good one, man.
You too, man.
Wow, it was really great to hear from Trevor from Evil
I
Genius.
know. We haven't
It's been
talked
a
to them
long
in
time.
such a long time.
I'm very, very excited for them.
Yes.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Yes.
I
in
was
fact-
very quiet during that segment. I didn't have a whole lot to say.
Yes,
and neither
yes.
did Steph. So Dan did most of the talking.
I think you guys knew that
We
it
were
was a
just-
special.
we were stunned.
It was
Yeah.
special for me because I've gone on record many times saying they're responsible for my favorite beer. So thank you for letting me take the helm on that one. And the last time we had anybody from Evil Genius on was Brewphoria. When we met John.
Yes.
Big things in store for them. But that lets us get to the topic at hand. The person who I'm sure is going to make me sound very stupid tonight, but so far, very, very, very friendly gentleman. And we can't thank you enough for coming out.
And
to
he's
us.
another Josh. We love our Joshes.
Yes.
on Beer
Josh
Busters.
Demonium continues.
Josh
We gotta-
Demonian part a million.
Well, this just means we have to think of a nickname for him now.
Yes, every Josh has a nickname. So by the end
Oh,
of this
God.
episode, Josh, you will have a nickname.
You will have a nickname.
Oh no, that's
We
not-
have
that's not good.
original recipe Josh.
Extra tasty crispy.
Extra tasty crispy Josh.
We have Lonely Josh.
Lonely Josh / 6% Josh.
Yes.
And then they already had what, Big Josh and
Big Josh and
what
Little
did-
Josh.
Was it just Little Josh? I,
think
thought
it
we
was
had another
Short Josh. I don't
That's
know.
just
We
not
need to
nice.
ask Tony.
We do, and most of the Josh talk made it in the outtakes because it was during very drunk, incoherent ramblings.
Oh, listen to that. You people need to sign up for our newsletter.
Yeah. Those outtakes are brought to you by the fact that I had a week to edit 3 hours of footage. So that was fun. But of course,
Speaking of Joshes.
speaking of Joshes, the Josh that is here tonight is a very well-educated man in the realm of beer, and from what I understand. And I think we may have mentioned this before we started recording, you gave up beer for Lent.
I gave up alcohol for Lent.
Alcohol in general. Oh.
Which I've done the giving up beer thing before, and that just sort of let me play around with wine and meat and cider and whiskey and all these things I sort of neglect because you can only drink so much in a given weekend.
That's true.
But yeah, this time around I just went whole hog and just said, let's give it all up.
So do you have like a calendar that you're counting down and like you can see the varying degree of squiggly marks that are trying to cross out the days?
When does Lent actually end?
I've done the research on that. It's Holy Saturday.
Okay.
Is the day it actually ends, and that gets you to 40 days.
So,
but that's presuming you're sort of breaking your fast every Sunday.
Okay.
Not to get too theological.
Okay.
Because this is not for religious reasons. I just thought it'd be fun, and I'm into sort of self-denial.
Fun?
You and I have very different definitions of that word.
A challenge. It's all about self-growth. No, my question is, when the internet is hearing these words, will Lent be over? So can we pretend that you didn't break your Lenten?
No, it won't.
No.
No,
Okay. So you're
no. We still have.
You're blowing up your spot
It's
either
the end
way.
it's the end of March. I want to say March 25th.
Okay.
I think.
All right, so we still have time.
But I gave myself two sort of dispensation days. One was to judge beer last weekend, and the other one was for this one because I thought it'd be really bizarre if I showed up and said, "No, I'm good. You guys enjoy all this beer."
Yeah. It would be a little strange.
You're like
Just a
part of
little
a
bit.
bizarre plot to poison you all.
Yeah, that would be weird. I'd at least make you take a sip and like spit it out.
He's
That
like
wouldn't
the
really prove
king.
much.
He waits till you drink it first.
Although I think at this point of the episode, we should point out who Josh is.
Yes,
Josh
true.
has the Beer Simple blog at beer-simple.com, where you write about brewing and beer culture.
Yeah.
Really interesting to read. I read
you.
over some of your blog posts, and you're obviously very educated, BJCP certified, and we'll get into all that kind of stuff. But really, really great. I mean, I want everybody to go to beerbusterspodcast.com to read about beer, but you should also go to beer-simple.com to read about beer.
Of course.
I really like your writing style, the way, and
Thank you.
your
Thank
insight, and it's
Yeah,
very good read.
I was going to mention the writing style too because I did get a chance to read. I didn't get to read as much as I'd wanted to in preparation of this, but I did read the article about beer bars sucking. I
Yes.
forget the name of the beer.
Yeah.
The name of the article rather, but it's a very, very
Beer
friendly
bars suck.
yet informative tone that doesn't come across in the way that you would imagine somebody trashing on beer bars would come across.
This was actually, it was sort of kicked off by what has become a series of posts now called Your Beer Sucks. And I wasn't intending to do this, but as I thought about it, there's a lot of way to conceptualize that. And one was sort of as a homebrewer learning that there are people you can talk to who will give you an honest opinion about your beer, and you need to hear it because nobody bats 1,000 on this, and you need to know where you can get objective feedback. But then I also thought, well, okay, but there are also breweries that aren't producing great beer, and sort of how do you let them know? And because I had personally a bad experience trying to pass on what I thought was very friendly and courteous advice. And it was not well received. And then I thought, well, what about also where we drink beer? There are places where you walk in and you look at the tap list, and your heart just feels sick at it. So and honestly, I'm not looking to criticize anybody or anything. It's mainly used as an attention getter, something to catch your eyes. You're scrolling along on Facebook
and some of those posts definitely got you some attention. I think some of those posts were shared a lot, and I think that was kind of an aha moment for some people, like, ooh, this guy's writing a blog, he's really smart, I want to read this. I kind of feel like that was your coming out moment, was when those articles started, when you started writing those. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I'm this is going to sound really strange. I didn't really start doing this to sort of get a following or get lots and lots of people to read it. It was mainly just sort of a creative outlet for me, because you get into conversations about beer with your friends in the beer world and with brewers, and you end up having a lot of the same conversations over and over again about things that you really love, or things that are disappointing, or things you wish were different. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a more permanent record of that, and something that you can refer back to? And so I just started writing it. I do a fair amount of writing anyway. I write for Brew Your Own magazine. I write for I've done a couple of guest blog posts and things like that. So I mean, if I'm going to be doing it, at least this way I kind of get to decide for myself what I want to write about and when. So it's fun.
Have you gotten some interesting feedback or comments from people out there?
Gotten a lot of great positive feedback.
Yeah.
I really felt like I had arrived when I found I had not a stalker. That's not the right word. A troll. That's it. A troll. Yes.
Oh, we remember our first troll.
Who at the bottom of almost every post for the first 4 or 5 weeks was talking about what a pretentious ass I am, and that's fine. Honestly, it's okay. I get that there's an element of that. I like my my deep literary references combined with my pop culture movie references. So I figured around the time I was breaking into a blog title that referenced the book Love in the Time of Cholera, that maybe that was a little nobody could say that's not a little pretentious, so I get that. But that was fun. And the great thing is that a lot of what I believe in is that everybody needs feedback, everybody needs criticism, everybody needs to hear things they don't want to hear. Because in my day job, I'm a political scientist, and political discussions get very heated at times.
You've got to be having a field day with what's happening right now.
It's a lot of fun to watch. It really
Again,
is.
you and I have different definitions of the word fun. I choose frightening, but
starting to think I might be a bit of a masochist, but yeah.
Fascinating. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. But I know just from the research in our field that you want two-sided information flow. So if you're constantly hearing the same thing, you're going to get this echo chamber effect.
Yep.
You're going to start believing things that maybe you shouldn't believe in quite so much. And more than that, you're going to drift. You're going to end up being more intense about these things because you're not getting any sort of pullback in the other direction. So I love hearing the positive and the negative feedback. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you need the negative feedback too, but it just has to be delivered in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that's the thing. You can have negative feedback, but have it be delivered in the wrong way. It's like, all right, well, now you're down. But negative feedback could also be constructive, and that's what people need. And there's I don't think enough people understand that overall.
Oh, well, there's a massive difference between criticism, which is a valuable thing, and just tearing somebody apart for
trolling.
with no exactly, with no virtue behind it, and no intent to actually help you at all. And I think personally, I'll take any feedback in any form it comes in. I'm not that sensitive, but you definitely need to make sure you're delivering your message for your audience.
And feedback for you was an interesting motivator when you started brewing.
Oh yes, yeah. I learned how to brew. I was lucky enough to be taught how to brew, and it was my brother-in-law Stan who had been brewing for years. And I don't know how I didn't know that, because I know known the guy for 6 or 7 years when we were at a party at his house, and he asked, "Well, what do you want to drink?"
I just have to interject here real quick.
Sure.
Is Stan now comfortable with you saying his name on the internet? Because I read the about section of your website, and you didn't name him until you got.
I didn't say his last name, so I feel like I'm just sort of threading the needle on that one, because I haven't actually asked him yet.
Okay,
it just hasn't come up. But Stan I got to brew with him one day, which I think is invaluable when you learn how to brew. And beyond that, I had not brewed my first beer when we had our first homebrew club meeting in the club that it was Stan's idea to found, and he and a few other people founded. And I got feedback on the very first beer I brewed, and almost immediately it was my second, third, and fourth beers were worlds better. So right away that struck me as something that we needed more of. And in our club, the Stony Creek Homebrewers, was always about the science of beer and learning about beer and teaching about beer, because none of us, for as interested and excited as we were, none of us really knew that much about brewing beer when we started. And so our first 4 meetings were literally, okay, this is malt. Here's what it does for you. And we just worked our way through the beer ingredients. And over time, we became a lot more sophisticated, but I never lost, how beneficial those first few meetings and first few rounds of feedback were. And so I'm definitely a big believer in that.
So how many batches did you brew before you started entering your beers in competition?
One. It was my first beer, and it wasn't very good. And I remember asking Stan, well, should I drop this in or should I not? We had a competition coming up in a few weeks, and he said, "Well, it's $5. What do you have to lose? Go
$5
get the
for
feedback." Yeah. And since that time, I think I've entered every beer I've brewed, and usually 4 or 5 times each over a span of 12 to 16 months. So I get a nice thick data set to play with.
And did I read an insane stat about you that your goal was to medal in every BJCP category?
Yes.
And you achieved that in 4 years?
It was I think it was a little less than that, but it was right around that amount of time.
That is just mind-blowing to me.
But what the important part of that, though, was that people thought I was just sort of vain. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is about. It's really just about knowing that I can produce what I want to produce. That I'm not sort of limited to being able to make just really good stouts or IPAs or something like that. And it forced me to try to brew things that I hadn't even heard of or drank, much less brewed before. So it was a wonderful experience.
And your most recent blog post, however, you talk about sort of having your core set of yeast that you use. What you have, maybe 3, like you have your ale strain that you prefer, the lager strain you prefer, and then the Belgian, which I know you don't use a lot because you're a man after my own heart. You don't really like Belgians, neither do I. But
well, the people are fine, just the beer.
But I assume you did not have that mentality back when you were brewing.
No, but I think that was part of what drove me to it.
That's how you learned about all these yeast strains, and that's how you got to your core 3, I guess.
Absolutely, and the number of British yeast strains I've been through, because I really got into home brewing because I wanted to recreate a beer that I had when I was younger, and I have no idea if it was any good, but it was called Double Diamond. I'm not even sure you can get it anywhere anymore. And since that time, I've probably brewed a dozen ESBs trying to sort of recreate what in my mind this tastes like, and I'm never happy with any of them. But that was where I learned sort of the real variety of yeast strains of what you get, and some are just unreliable, and some do things you really don't expect, and others seem to mimic characters in other yeast strains. So it was really about finding things that worked well and just using that tool, because now you know what that'll produce, and now you have a little lever on reality that you can use to dial in what you want.
And how far into brewing was it when you were like, well, not only do I want to enter the competitions, but I want to be the one judging the competitions too?
I really didn't have much interest in judging, to be honest. Not at first. Stan had been a judge, had taken the exam, and it looked very intimidating. I enjoyed brewing beer. I enjoyed drinking beer. I wasn't sure about the judging part, but then he decided that he wanted to, raise a family or whatever was going on over there. And so he asked if I would take over the club, and I said, sure, I would. But I thought, well, we should probably, whoever's in this position of being president of this homebrew club should probably be a certified judge, because we were doing feedback every meeting for every beer that everybody brought. So it was good to have somebody there who could do it systematically. And so I sat the exam about, I don't know how many years ago it's been now. 6 years ago. I sat for the BJCP exam back when it was the old, write till your knuckles bleed written and while you're tasting beer exam, not the fun one they have now where you just get to do it online and then taste 6 beers. But I took the exam and I passed, and since then I felt like if I was going to advocate that everybody enter all their beers multiple times, then I had to do my part in doing the heavy lifting there and getting them evaluated. So I judge all the local competitions. I've occasionally traveled to judge if it fits in the schedule.
Now, I just want to underscore the level of judge that you are, because Steph, Wayne, and I were talking about it before you got in here so we could start recording. You're one of, 50, is it, people in the country at your level?
In the world.
In the
actually,
world,
if we're going to get technical.
In the world. One of
There's probably
50.
2 or 3 Canadians in there.
So you factor in a global population of 7 billion people.
Yeah.
And you are one of 50.
Yeah, that's
certified
correct.
to do what you do. So that test that you had to go through, the process you had to go through, what was that like?
Well, to just be certified, it's about 2 or 3 months worth of preparation with a lot of beer tasting and a lot of technical studying, and because you're tested on the life cycle of yeast and fermentation temperatures and beer styles and statistics and everything else. And then the other half of it is practical, where you have to be able to evaluate beer and perceive what a set of proctors that are tasting the same beers perceive. And there are about, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 judges that have been certified by the BJCP, the Beer Judge Certification Program. And within that, a combination of your exam scores plus your experience level can move you from certified to national to master to grandmaster. And I've been a grandmaster BJCP judge for, I guess, about a year and a half now.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, that's huge.
And that's the top level. There's probably some secret. There's like 3 people, and nobody even knows what it is. Like cosmic master judge.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Nice, nice. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I like it. Intriguing.
It's like Scientology.
And on top of that, you are also a certified Cicerone.
I am, yeah.
Any plans to go up the Cicerone ranks as well?
I don't think so.
Enough is enough.
I'm not sure my wife would support it, but I wanted to become a certified Cicerone just because I liked what it made me focus on in terms of beer, the beer pairings and the food and everything else. And that beer is a culinary, appendage, and it's fun stuff to prep for too. It's the same kind of exam where you have a lot of practical tasting. Plus, it's really a credential for people that work in the beer industry, and you have to learn about tap system maintenance and things like that. And I was in the process of building out my tap system at home, so it gave me an excuse to become a little more expert at that, so I can troubleshoot my own system. So I think that's done what it needed to do.
So when did you? I know. So you started the home brewing. You liked getting the feedback for it, but when did you decide that you were this much in love with beer?
Almost immediately, which is great when you find things like that. It's like falling in love, I loved in helping Stan prep for the exam, just flipping through the style guidelines and these beer descriptions. And this was more kinds of beer than I knew even existed. I think, like most people, I was aware of beer having different breweries, and we know them sort of by label. When someone says I'm drinking a Sam Adams, usually they're talking about Sam Adams Boston Lager.
Right,
so
right.
It's sort of a very superficial level of knowledge of it, and you're not thinking too deeply about it, even though maybe you should. But as I was flipping through and reading about these beers and reading the historical descriptions and why dry stout came from Ireland and what happened when you took Pilsner from Pilsen in Czechoslovakia over the mountains to Munich, all of a sudden they had to change the recipe because the water was different. And so you start to realize that beer is really a story of the historical development of something that is shared across so many cultures and so much time. It just sucked me in right away because I'm a big history buff and I'm a cook. I don't know any homebrewers who are not either scientists or cooks.
Yeah, that's very true.
I love cooking.
Yeah. Chemistry and cooking.
And so it combined a lot of, and there's a lot of technical expertise that's required to do it well, and there's also a lot of artistry that's required to do it well.
I don't think anybody gets
fun.
into brewing because they like cleaning.
No. I have a real passion for shiny copper. No.
I just love cleaning materials.
That's why you brew with friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Cuts the cleaning in half.
But that's really interesting. Talking about beer styles is sort of a representation or the results of history, and the result, like you said, moving a style from Pilsen, somewhere else in the water's different, so that gives birth to another style, and how different, and like IPAs coming
with
up for the
hops,
preservative characteristics
Sure.
becomes a style of beer.
And what do you get when you don't have hops? What happened up in Scotland? That's why they're malty like they are.
Exactly. And it's fascinating. I mean, we love sitting around, drinking as many different styles of beers as possible, and Steph beer-educates us about styles of beers in her Know Your Beer segment, but you don't often think of it that way, and it's really fascinating to think about how styles of beer. Somebody doesn't just sit down and say, we should make a beer. I mean, people do, but styles don't come about that way. They come about through
and we're living
process.
We're living history too. Just looking at the 2015 guidelines,
right?
Yeah. It's jaw dropping to see the changes and the additions that have been added. Since 2012 and 2008. And I mean, we talked about black IPAs last time and how the history was rooted in the 1990s.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's a style of beer that emerged 20 years ago.
I'm used to talking about beers from like the Middle Ages or, from the 1500s or 1700s. And talk about what 1516. Talk about one that was, just inspired just in our lifetime. It's crazy.
And it's
we're living beer history right now.
Sure. Fascinating to think that just within the past few decades that the sort of qualifier American in front of styles of
Right.
beer. An
Yes.
American
Yes.
IPA, an American, amber, whatever. How that is its own thing, and how
it's respected.
exactly, and
now.
that people in
yes.
Germany respect American craft
The
beer.
Well,
fact
case in
that
point, Stone.
Stone
Yeah.
is in Berlin.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have ever thought that would
Yeah,
have been
it's
embraced
huge.
in
Absolutely.
Berlin?
The level of history that Germany has overall with beer in general to let Americans in there, but not only that, I love the history that beer has overall. And you mentioned that you're into the historical development of it. You're a history buff with it. Are you of the mindset that beer helped us civilize?
It's kind of know in which direction the causal arrow went there. It's hard to say, well, did we settle down and cultivate so that we could produce cereal grains so we can make, among other things, beer, or did because we had finally found this technology that allowed us to stay in one place that we then decided to settle? It's hard to say for certain.
Well,
but
it
didn't hurt.
A bit of a tangent, but I don't think that the agricultural revolution started with like 10 people being like, we want to make beer, so we have to stay in one
Hell
place.
yeah, it did.
I have a it's more of a gradual, widespread process across many different pseudo-civilizations.
Yeah, but when you're drinking a few beers and you're watching that documentary, you believe it all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, little of column A, little of column B.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so we just went from the emergence of black IPA in the 1990s to the beginning of modern human civilization in a matter of a couple minutes.
Well, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about that had we not transferred from a nomadic society to a civilized one.
Yes.
Good point.
So getting back to the 21st century, now I want to ask about induction brewing because I
Sure.
know it's something that you are very passionate about. You even spoke at NHC in 2013 in Philly about induction brewing. So why induction? Why is that the way to go?
It was mainly because I was using this giant. After we moved into our new house, I bought this giant Blickman floor burner, and I had designs to build this 10-gallon brewery, and I bought all the equipment and everything else. And I tried it a couple times, and I just absolutely hated it. It was too much beer for me. I didn't really want to make that much beer. I just felt like I should. And so I ended up sending it back, and I said, well, what am I going to do now? And I thought, well, what options do I really have? And one of the things I hit on was induction elements because my wife is a little paranoid about fire. I mean, she's not obsessed with it or anything, but she doesn't like the idea of a screaming hot, jet burner, boiling away underneath our bedroom.
Makes sense.
In the garage. So I looked at my options, and I looked at assorted hot plates and electric options and everything. The induction element was fun because it struck me as fantastically safe. It was there's no actual hot element. It's just that the magnet underneath the ceramic or glass plate on top of it induces a magnetic field, which causes friction in the molecules in the metal of the pot itself. So the pot is actually what's heating.
Yep.
When the first time you see it, it looks like magic. You're like, this can't, because you walk into Williams Sonoma when they're selling these fancy Viking ones for like $600, though you don't need to spend near that much. But they'll put down a pan that's sort of been cut in half, so it's half a pan, and they'll crack an egg over it, and the part of the egg that lands on the pan starts to cook, and the part that is just sitting on the element is just laying there raw and cold. And it's a fantastic demonstration. But what I loved about it was crazy efficient. I can boil 5 gallons with almost no boil off. It heats quickly. It's as I said, incredibly safe. I can just walk away. It cuts down the active time you spend brewing by an order of magnitude. The process itself is only 3.5 hours.
Oh my god!
Wow.
And of that 3.5 hours, I'd have to look at the numbers. I put it all together for the presentation at NHC, but I think I spent a grand total, including cleaning and setup and everything else. I think I spent a grand total of about an hour and 10 minutes actually brewing. And the rest of the time, I'm just, upstairs in the office with my timer going in my pocket. Jeez. And when it buzzes, I'm like, oh, got to go downstairs and add some hops.
Right,
I mean, it's just the simplest thing in the world. And again, cost. We're talking, I assume you use about a third of a what's that called? The vessel, the natural gas, the propane tank.
Tank.
I don't know why I struggled with that. I'm not making you look stupid now.
He did that for you, Dan.
You're welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
But to brew a batch of beer, you're using about a third of a tank of propane, which is $7 or $8. When I work out what it costs me in electric to run my induction element for the equivalent amount of energy, I mean, we're talking like 20 cents. It's a meaningful savings in
And I think
cost.
As an advocate for the induction brewing, if for no other reason, all the reasons that you listed are amazing. but I think, if for no other reason, just because it looks like magic.
It does. Yeah.
I think that is reason enough.
Magic brewing. Absolutely.
Speaking of magic, there's another
Speaking
beer
of
in our
magic.
glass.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, what is
Can
that?
It has materialized in front of me.
So another brewery that I've recently revisited was Vault Brewing. And another brewery that is magically expanding. They recently bought a warehouse space that's within walking distance of their brew pub. And it's going to be a larger production facility that will include a tasting room, and that is Vault Brewing Company. And this is their Belgian Golden Ale, which they recently released in bottles. There is a bourbon barrel version, a tequila barrel version.
Ooh, a tequila version of this would be interesting.
This is the Chardonnay barrel aged.
But that is the best barrel.
That's what that smell is.
Yes, it is.
I thought Wayne when I saw this one.
Yep.
So 9% Belgian Golden Ale aged in Chardonnay barrels.
I have to make one suggestion to Vault, and
Okay.
that is that you have to do some sort of homage to the Fallout franchise of video games.
I don't know what that is or what that means.
There's a very select few people that listen that will get that.
Okay.
That's why I love those people.
It's nice.
I do like this beer. It's really, really, really
I
good.
couldn't choose between these two, so sorry, people. We have two tasting beers today.
You know, as an aside,
Sipping beers or
I
whatever.
do sometimes worry about the crossover between the nerd and beer geek demographic in our audience, because Dan and I are pretty nerdy. But then I remember that Will Wheaton exists.
Yes,
and everything's
exactly.
Yes.
Oh, I do love Will Wheaton. Although I know who Will Wheaton is because I would watch his listen
I know who Will
slash
Wheaton is
watch his
because
homebrewing
of
stuff.
Star Trek.
Oh,
Shut up,
wow.
Wesley.
I never watched Star Trek, so I know, and I'm related to you too. I'm sorry, but the first time I ever really heard him talk about homebrewing was when he moderated when Stone, Dogfish Head, and Victory did that crazy beer with all the herbs in it. What the hell's that beer called?
I don't remember.
Couldn't tell you.
But yeah, he moderated a talk between the three of them, and it was fun.
You know what
and
song-
he answered one of my questions
Oh,
via
there you
Twitter.
go.
So I was like,
That's
"Yay,
cool.
Will Wheaton is reading my question."
You know what song I heard on the radio on the way here, and it ties into you never watching Star Trek and us watching Star Trek? Banditos by The Refreshments.
The refreshments.
Oh, yes.
I heard that on the radio
Your
on the way here.
ID card to the border guard, and your alien says that you're
Captain
Jean-Luc Picard from the United Federation of Planets.
Steph's looking at us.
I know that song, but I never knew what it meant. So, anyway, back to beer. Josh, you mentioned earlier that you write for BYO Magazine, but you have a very interesting series that you contribute to. Those words didn't come out the right way, but I think you know what I'm trying to get you
message
to
came
talk
across.
about.
Yeah,
Tell us about your articles.
I have a column, The Replicator is the name of the
Yes.
column, and the purpose of this column is to take requests from BYO readers for beers that they would like to make. Maybe they were driving through town and stopped at a brew pub somewhere, and they fell in love with the beer and they can't get it, and they'd like to be able to brew it at home. And basically what happens is they send these requests to BYO forwards them over to me, I contact the brewery, we work up a recipe, we work up, a process, we convert it into BYO sort of standard, recipe format.
Right.
And in theory, it should produce a very, very similar beer. I wish I could say that I could produce all of them that I've written clone recipes for BYO, but I'd never have time to brew anything else if I did. But I've done a few, and they hit very close to the mark.
Is there a clone recipe you haven't written yet that you would love to write? Like you could secretly write it as someone else and choose it?
If I could submit my own request
Dear
anonymously.
Josh from Josh.
Yeah, dear Josh. Wow, that's a great question. What is a beer I would really love to make?
For me, it'd be Citrus Sour from Almanac.
That's good.
I would love to be able to replicate that beer, but I think it's impossible. At least in the homebrew level.
You may need actual magic.
Yes, actual magic or their barrels.
If I had to pick one, I'd maybe something like the Neshaminator from Neshaminy Creek
Oh,
Brewing
yeah.
Company.
That's an amazing beer. Or that elusive ESB that you...
Yes, yeah. If
Oh,
the folks
yeah,
at
there
Double
you go.
Diamond are still in business, I have no idea if it's even any good. That's the wonderful and
You may have
terrible part of it.
you probably recreated it 20 times better.
I just don't. I'm beginning to question whether it even really exists at all. Like, this is some sort of weird beer fever dream.
No, I know it does because I have a massive Double Diamond bar mirror
Okay.
hanging in my brewery, and it's inspiration for me. So yeah, but it's probably horrible. I shouldn't say that. I would
You just
disparage
remember
the
it
brewery.
fondly.
Exactly.
Oh, Dan has done some
Is it
Googling.
that?
Oh, no.
No? Oh, man.
No.
Apparently, Carlsberg owns it now.
Yeah, Burton Brew. It's a Burton Pale Ale. Again, I have no idea if it's any good.
Wow.
If anyone wants to send it to me, my address is.
Just get in touch through beersimple.com.
Yeah, send it to us. We'll get it to Josh. Of course, you'll have to come back on the show so we can taste it.
I was gonna say,
At
I
least
see
record it.
See a
while we can
ransom
see it.
situation there.
So,
Yes.
as the master brewer and judge that you are, what's your take on Mr. Beer Kits?
I've never brewed one. It's funny you mentioned that. Over the summer, I've resolved to get a bunch of these and brew them off and see what happens, because I'm convinced that, and I feel this way too about a lot of extract kits and sort of the, I don't want to say condescending, but sort of the presumption that all grain brewing has to be superior to extract brewing. I don't think that's necessarily the case. It might be the case, but I think what happens is we start brewing with extract. And after about a year of that, we eventually convert over and start brewing with all grain. And the beer is just a lot better. But I think what's happening is that we're just better at brewing.
Right.
Because I brew probably 2 or 3 extract batches per year. If at any of the competitions they have any of these sort of like, Brewer's Best extract kits available, I'll grab one because they're impossible to ship. And, if I'm just producing something to take to a party or something, and I have a high school reunion coming up and everybody wants beer, so I'll grab an extract kit and just knock that out quickly. I find that they're very good, and they do well in competition. They're evaluated well, so I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the Mr. Beer kits, but I'm going to have to try.
I think for me, I don't think it was the pretentiousness that got me into all grain. I have brewed extract, but I started with the Brooklyn Brew Shop kit, which their 1 gallon kits are all grain right off the bat. So that was my first experience with brewing. But what I like about all grain is the creativity.
Oh, sure.
That I can literally brew whatever the hell I want. And that's why I got into homebrewing, because I wanted to brew what I wanted to drink.
All the spicy stuff that you can.
Whatever. That wasn't out there. Well, yeah, and that's what it was. I really got intrigued by spicy beers, and I felt like they weren't spicy enough. And I was like, well, if I brew it myself, I can brew it however the hell spicy I want to brew it.
Steph may actually be somewhat responsible for the rise in popularity of spicy beers, because there seems to be more and more of them out there all the time.
There are more of them.
I'll take credit for that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. But no, I think that's an interesting. I think you should, and it would be fun to blog about it and the results and your experience. And is all grain really better, or are we just better brewers?
I wanna try my Mr. Beer next to your Mr. Beer.
Well, oh yeah, that is a genius idea.
Speaking of masochism.
Although again, if these kits work in keeping with the beer simple philosophy, if there's an easier way to do it and there's not a noticeable difference in quality, then one of the reasons I started writing the blog in the first place is that I'm convinced that if brewing were faster and cheaper and easier, brewers would do more of it. Because when I ask people why they don't brew more, it's always, I just don't have the time, or I can't find the weekend. Yeah, and especially if you're an extract brewer, goodness gracious, it almost doubles the cost. But so if anything makes the process cheaper and easier, then I think it's worth a shot.
And you mentioned the beer simple philosophy, and I want to bring up earlier when you talked about your troll and saying that you were very pretentious, and reading the things you've written. I think one of the most noticeable and refreshing things about your blog is that you don't come off as pretentious.
No.
You come off as knowledgeable, but down to earth.
Smart but approachable.
And I think that's and I think we, as doing what we do, we try whatever it is we're doing. I mean, our podcast. We're not sitting around debating the finer points of the chemistry of beer for a half an hour.
Although we could if you really want to.
We'll bring it up. We'll talk about it.
I'll pull out my textbooks.
Yeah, but then we have a few beers and we crack stupid jokes and we have fun. And I think that's the point. Like
beer should be fun.
Beer should be fun. Like yes,
Absolutely.
It's an art. Yes, it's a science.
Yes.
But as people who appreciate and enjoy beer, there is that the AB InBev mustache in the commercial guy.
Absolutely.
Flinging the
there's
lemon.
the beer hipster. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there is that perception out there, and there is an element of that in the craft beer culture. And I think it's refreshing to see someone as knowledgeable and decorated, for lack of a better term, as you are. To come across as down to earth and say, let's talk about beer.
They can't say that you don't know what you're talking
exactly.
about.
Right.
It doesn't stop them. And it always gets to a point, and one of the recent posts was about this, about brewing dogma and the doctrinaire, very rigid attitude many, if not most, brewers take to what they're doing. And what struck me was not the unwillingness to adopt my methods, because I've always said, look, brew whatever way you want. It makes no difference to me. What struck me was how often they would come back with, but what I'm doing can't possibly be working. That what I'm doing must not work. And I'm like, well, okay, well, maybe it doesn't, but here's why I think it does. I've brewed, I don't know, 250 or so batches, and I've got data on all of them, and it does really well. So if it's not working, it's not working really, really, really well. And the thing is, I'm not a scientist, and I got into this, in writing the blog in large part because I wanted people to know you don't need to be, and I think we run the risk of making it sound too complex and too challenging and too difficult. Yeah. And there is definitely a time and a place to really geek out on beer. It's at the National Homebrewers Conference coming to Baltimore this year.
That's right. June
9th to the 11th. There, I've got my plug in for it. I'm on the committee. But yeah, and that crowd is totally going to appreciate as much detail as you can provide. But to the average person just sitting around saying, "Oh, neat, you brew beer," if you start going into the impact of pitching your beer at 80 degrees because of how it affects the lag phase of the growth, and whether it's going to produce esters and polyphenols, you've lost them. They're never going to brew beer.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen. And I think we need to sort of reel that in a little bit.
But then you also have the people who know about it and appreciate all the details you can give them. You have the people who think they know what they're talking about.
Yep.
And think they know better than your details. And then you have the people like me who are just dumbfounded by all of it, and I want to try to learn it, but one thing for me, the reason I've got a Mr. Beer kit, and I got it for Christmas. And I've never actually brewed on my own, but it's mostly
your only brewing experience is commercially.
Exactly. Yeah. I've only ever brewed commercially. I don't have time to do it, and it's because of my crazy work schedule. And when we have 3.5 hour episodes that I have a week to edit, but I'd love to learn all about it. And I'm excited for where that can lead me.
The things that make for great beer are not complicated things, which is something I'm always trying to get across in the blog. A lot of the things I do that people tell me can't possibly work, I discovered. I don't even want to say discovered. It's not like we discover anything in this process, but I incorporated it into my process because I thought, you know what? Do I really need to do this step? I know someone told me I have to, but what would happen if I don't? So I leave it out, and then I sort of compare the results. And more often than there's a reason I can brew in 3.5 hours, and it's not just because I'm like compulsive. It's because I've stripped out a lot of things that are just simply unnecessary.
Right.
And things that I don't even think would count as cutting corners. I think it's just that we include them out of a sense of like reverence to the past or of nostalgia or
but wait, they told me I have
it
to
turns
do
out it doesn't make a difference if you
devotion.
sing to the mash or not. It doesn't care.
It might even be bad for it, for the record.
Depending on who's singing.
Are you a fan of the ends justify the means in that case?
As in, if you're producing a good product, who cares how you got it?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Good. Anytime anybody tells me about, not to get too nerdy, but again, like about the need for decoction mashing, it's like, yes, I can do this 5 or 6 hour long, maybe all day process, or I can add 1% of melanoidin malt to my beer, and I get an indistinguishable result. So why would I ever do that?
Or just fly to Germany and
I think
drink
it's
the
just
beer
more
there.
about the fact that
It's
decoction's really fun to say.
That's true. Decoction is a fun word.
Decoction.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Don't decoct.
And which, again, is not to say that if you want to do that you shouldn't do it. By all means, I know people that are historical brewers who love these old-fashioned brewing methods. And one year for the club, we did a Scandinavian Stein beer, where you heat rocks in a fire and drop it into a barrel.
Oh my God!
Awesome.
And we're like, there's no way this thing's ever going to boil. Like, and we put the first batch of rocks in, and it gets a little warm, and then we put the second batch of rocks in, and it starts to steam a little bit. We put the third batch of rocks in, and we got a boil over in a 55-gallon wooden barrel.
Wow.
The thing erupted. It was awesome. So there's definitely a lot of fun to be had with that. But again, you're not going to do that every week. Yeah. But you might, if your process was 3 hours, you might do it once or twice a month.
That's our next
once
video.
Or twice a year.
That's our next video.
That's gonna be our next video.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm. Yes.
We should do a video series of like historical brewing methods, as long as other people are like.
I just want to do a video throwing hot rocks into something.
Well, of course,
it is fun. Yeah,
throw hot rocks.
The big fire is the fun part.
So, I before we wrap up this interview segment, I know I'm itching to start opening your beers, but I kind of feel like we need to take the time to get your view on the current state of the craft beer culture.
Ooh.
I feel like you probably have a
I feel like this might be a conversation that could spread across a few beers.
Yeah.
Probably. But maybe we should start it now.
Yeah.
Before we open another beer.
I will say, and this is not new to anybody who's read the blog, I don't think. There's elements of it all through it, and anybody who talks to me about this, I sometimes bring it up. But I think we're at a very precarious position in the craft beer world. I think that it's great that we have these thousands of breweries now, and I think it's great that people who have never tried it before are starting to try it. But the risk I think we run is that if you have a profit-motivated industry, and they almost all are, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a
course,
capitalist
yeah.
like anybody else. But it means that the bars are going to keep on tap the things that people are ordering, and people are going to order things where they can easily pick out certain flavors. So you're going to get a lot of IPAs, you're going to get a lot of stouts, because it's easy to see what those are supposed to be like. The risk we run, though, is when someone who has drank Coors Golden for their entire life wanders into a craft beer bar and says, yeah, give me and they just pick at random. Now, you take the average beer that they get, and if you had a sack with all the beer names in the country and just pulled one out, I can almost guarantee you it's going to be over 7% in alcohol. It's going to be over 80 IBUs. It's going to be some big double IPA or Russian Imperial Stout or something barrel aged, which if that's your first beer, that's like if your first car was a Dodge Viper. Yeah. It's like you're just not ready for that. Don't even try. You're going to kill yourself. And so we run the risk of alienating people because when that person has that beer, they're going to think, oh, God, is this what they're drinking? No, just give me my Coors. I mean, I'm happy with that. So I think we need to be better at getting people into beer. I think we need more things in the marketplace that are sort of pitched as gateway beers.
Right,
things
more
like,
accessible to
absolutely.
people.
And you know what did it for me?
What?
So what did it for me was I was 21, freshly 21, and go out. I'm going to conquer the world, but I'm going to do it with a Bud Light in my hand. So I started with the Bud Miller and Coors because it was on special at all the shitty clubs that I went to.
Yep.
And then I discovered Yuengling. Yuengling, I think, was my gateway, as most people in this area
Absolutely.
will have that same. But beyond that, when I had a Sam Adams, when I had the Boston Lager,
Yep.
I didn't know lager could taste different.
Yes.
Than Yuengling. I thought Yuengling was the be-all, end-all caramel lager. That's what it's all going to taste like.
Well, that's what lager. You order lager here. That's
exactly.
What
That's what you're going to get
the
in this area.
definition of lager
Yes.
is Yuengling.
But once I had that and I had Boston Lager, I knew there could be a difference, and that was the rabbit hole. That's when I started going down that rabbit hole, and I'm glad I did because now I know what a real German lager is compared to Boston Lager, compared to Yuengling, and I can appreciate all of those different levels of flavor. Yep. That was my gateway, and I really think in this area we're lucky that we have that.
Oh, yes.
No, I completely agree. For me, I would drink Corona Light because as a young 20-something,
Sorry,
at one time the calories mattered to me, and then Yuengling came out with their light, which was even less calories than Corona Light,
the lightest beer in America.
So I started drinking that, and then I was
Light
like,
Lager by Yuengling is something I've had many, many times, and I have to point out about Corona. My favorite thing about Corona was when we had
is
the
that
blind,
you know what it is as soon as you open take
we
the
had
cap
the
off?
blind taste test
yeah.
when
skunkiness.
John G was here, and afterwards, Wayne, you look at me and go, "Man, we opened that Corona. I thought, oh my God, did I fart?"
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you could smell it across the room. We were right here. We were in the basement, and Rich poured. We did a blind tasting of macro beers just to see, how it would go. And as soon as he opened that Corona, like Corona's known for being skunky, but that bottle in particular was
As soon as he was all the way over there and opened the bottle, and as soon as he opened it, we knew.
If you mass distribute in a clear bottle, you are asking for trouble.
That's why you put a lime in it.
And you know that the people buying it aren't going to care.
Exactly,
if
because they're
that's
just
the
getting
case.
drunk.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Sure.
We all know
but not to pick on. I mean, if that's what you want to drink, it's what you
and
want
that's
to
the
drink,
thing.
That's fine.
And I had when I was looking over the notes, and we had some topics that were good for discussion, and it's just what Wayne said. One of the best things
it was Star Trek, world domination.
Yes,
sorry.
Mr. Beer.
Beer.
One of the best things Tom Scoglio ever said was,
Oh boy,
he
said a lot of good things.
Yes, the best beer is one shared with good friends, and that's what it all comes down to. I'm never going to make fun of somebody, genuinely make fun of them for liking Miller Lite, for liking Bud Light, for liking Corona.
At least they're drinking beer.
Yeah, exactly. It's not my cup of tea. You're drinking something that makes you happy, and
even if you want to drink tea.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're doing it with the right people in the right group, and you
Ain't
just have
nothing wrong
fun,
with that.
that's why when I tailgate a Phillies game, I am perfectly fine with Miller Lite and Coors Light because that's the environment and that's what it calls for.
Yep.
But I think I'm going to completely 100% admit I went through that just like when I became a vegan and I was on my soapbox like, oh my God, you're eating meat. I can't believe it. I think we all go through that ale hole syndrome where, we start drinking craft beer and we're like, oh my God, you're drinking a Budweiser. Oh my God. and fine. I mean, whatever your beliefs are, we all have different beliefs. And the bottom line is you order, you pay for, you drink what you want to drink and
Bingo.
and you support what you believe in. And I have my beliefs about big beer and where the money is going, and I order and I drink what I drink because of those beliefs. But I think we need to be careful, just like having approachable beers for people trying to get into craft beer. We also have to watch that we're having approachable conversations, because we don't want to come across
And that's what I aim for.
as being an ass, because
No.
people are not going to want to be a part of that culture if they feel it's pretentious and if they feel that they're going to be judged in a certain way. Like you said, when it comes down to it, now and then you may want to have a Bud Light, and that's okay. That's your choice, but and I hope that the craft beer movement is getting into that point where the ale holes are starting to go away. I hope so. But I think when this big boom started, I think, and I was part of that. I think there was a lot of that.
There. We've all been there. Yep. And that's the thing. We've all been there, but you got to grow to accept what other people appreciate, and that's them. That's all it is. You do you, and that's all that matters.
Agreed.
You do you.
You do you.
I thoroughly believe that a locally sourced walking beer is the only surefire way to properly moderate your thetan levels.
Wow.
I'm just putting that out there.
On that note.
So you're right. On that note.
Beer me! Beer me! Beer me! Beer me!
Another classic segue.
Another segue.
Wow.
You have carefully chosen a bottle.
I have. If I remember rightly, you all wanted to start with the Saison.
Always,
Saison,
always,
nothing wrong with that.
always
And,
start with the Saison.
However, I'm not sure if you guys read this. It is actually a beet Saison.
Oh,
Like-
sweet.
Like
Nice.
Beats, like
Oh,
Red
yeah,
Beats.
like Beats, yes.
Bears Beats, Battlestar Galactica.
Bears.
Yes. Yes.
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
Best
ever...
episode of Office Space. Office Space.
Office Space.
Of The Office.
There you
wow. Ever.
Yeah, this was one that was I brewed as part of a club challenge. We have a biannual club brewing challenge.
Was
and-
Walmart involved?
No, Walmart was not involved in this one. This was a Secret Santa competition, and you gifted someone an ingredient and a style of beer. And for our winter social, everybody had to have theirs brewed and bring it with
Wait a
them.
minute.
That could be so deadly and mean.
It
Do you know the
was-
person you get before you pick the ingredient?
Yes.
So
but-
you can be a bitch.
Yes. I feel like beet Saison is a pretty generous one. I felt like that was doable.
So the person that got your name liked you.
Or at least didn't hate me.
Well, the other thing, too, is
unlike-
if the person got your name, probably went through, shit, I got Josh.
Unlike the poor bastard who ended up with the kimchi calcommon.
Wow. I
Which-
think I'd rather have Corona.
It was, you would, believe me. I think we had 14 or 15 of these, and in the judging of them, everyone pretty much agreed that, wow, there was some really creative stuff, and that none of them were dogs, except for that one. Because it really did just smell like vomit. It was horrifying. But the beet Saison, I was mainly just going for something pretty.
It smells beady.
It does. You really
does
get the
smell
beet
beady.
and the aroma. It's
And I mean it in the nicest way. It's so earthy and
Did you
beady.
let the beat drop?
wow.
Drop.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. Point in fact, there are no beets in this beer.
Wait a minute.
I cheated a tiny bit. Here's what I did. I took 2 cans of canned beets, just took out the beets and just pitched the liquid that was left. Because I was looking to limit the beet character. It did not work. It really came through. But oddly enough, I found that after a few sips, it becomes much less vegetable-y and just much more fruity and really integrates well into the flavor of the Saison, which is nice. Because I got a fair amount of pepper out of the yeast.
So you just added that in secondary.
Well, at the end of fermentation, yeah.
It's nice.
It is nice. You do get the beet character in the aroma, definitely. But it's not...
Every song with beat in is going through my
Yeah, I
head.
know.
Every time somebody says beat, I'm
Beat
like,
it.
Don't stop. You don't stop the beat.
Turn the
You
beat
can't
around.
stop. Turn the beat around. How many notes can we sing before we get sued?
According to the wise words of Tom Scolio, it's 7. Our official legal...
That was 5.
Yeah.
Yes,
But-
I had to count it on my fingers.
The beet character is not overly pronounced, is what I was getting at.
No, it's more earthy and a bit sweet, but pleasant. And it works with a saison. And you said the style was also
Yeah,
gifted,
that was
and I put that in
dictated
quotes.
as well.
Gifted.
Yeah, gifted.
I mean, it could have gone wrong, like a beet IPA. Ooh.
That would have been a little aggressive.
Yeah, that would have been. I don't know how that would.
You'd have to find a way. Yeah, and there, I think you'd be going exactly the opposite direction. I think I'd like put ground beet, looking for something to dry it out and give it an earthy flavor. I mean, it'd be rough. Yeah, but this matched well because saison usually has a lot going on anyway.
This is true.
Can't go wrong.
So it gives you a lot to play with.
Can't go wrong with the saison.
There are
No matter what you put it in.
Two people in this world that love saisons more than anyone else. It's Wayne and John Stemler.
Yeah.
So you are swirling your glass and looking at it, and so kind of talk to us and like give us a little a teaser. I know we're going to talk a little more about this later,
Yeah,
but
I don't want to give it all away. I've only got like 3 things that I do. No, I'm kidding. That's I
look, smell, taste.
The swirling is just to aerate it a little bit because you're releasing aromatics from it, and these fantastic snifters we have here.
I figured since you were here, we couldn't do just sample glasses.
I did notice the quality of the glassware was a little raised this evening.
Oh, this is
for
me.
anything.
Yeah, well,
it's usually these little
no more red Solo cups.
Like
No,
like
there's
Brewfest sample glasses.
Over here is our container of sample glasses. So like all the free sample glasses you get at breweries or Brewfest, and that's usually what we pull out. But
these are perfect.
I was like, oh crap, Josh is coming. We need to get some goblets out.
Yeah, really pretty goblets. But yeah, and I always tell people when you're drinking beer, just sniff more than you drink. Some people are more sensitive.
That doesn't make sense to me. Sorry.
No worries. Some people are more sensitive to aromas than they are to flavors on the tongue. Some people aren't. So I tend to find that I am. But even beyond that, it's definitely easier to reset your receptors in your nose. Basically, you just sniff yourself. Just sniff your sleeve, and you're more or less reset.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of keep going back in looking for different things. I find it's easier to parse aromas out than flavors because flavors you're also getting all kinds of tactile sensations as well. So sniff more than you drink, and it also will slow you down a little bit. But it's hilarious. I go to my neighbor's house anytime there's snow. We have a big snow party for everybody in the neighborhood, and he is just wall to wall Coors Golden. And I find that even at his house, I pour it into a glass, and I'm still just out of just muscle memory, just sort of swirling and sniffing it. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's just Coors, Josh. That's not going to change all that much. And I still do it. I can't help it.
That's hilarious.
No, I joke, but honestly, my top 5 list of my favorite beers of all time is a Coors Golden. I was at the Coors Brewery in Golden, Colorado, and it was right out of the bright tank at the brewery. It was fantastic.
Really?
So really delicious beer.
I'd be interested in trying that.
I just had
really
a
good.
conversation with someone recently about that. I would really love to go to Coors or Budweiser, one of the big breweries, and have that beer from the source.
Oh, yeah.
I've never experienced that. I would love that. We should do a field trip. Apparently,
We've got a lot of field trips to get through.
when my mother was pregnant with me, she toured the Budweiser factory in
sense.
Virginia
Explains so much.
and got deathly ill. So I feel
And
like
you grew up to become a vegan. A cautionary tale, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very special episode of Beer Busters.
and
The more you know.
Sorry.
I think the brewer. Never mind, whatever. But I should go back there now.
Yeah.
So let's do one more beer.
Okay, let's
What's on
Brown
the...
ale, perhaps? Did I
Yes,
hear there's
indeed.
a brown ale?
There
And there's
is.
I think a fun story behind this.
Yes, there is. Yeah, the brown ale was produced on license by Noble Brewer,
One. Ooh.
and this was one that was the recipe was one that it was the second beer I ever brewed, and it won me my first medal, and it hasn't changed all that much. But it's an American brown ale, but it's made with all English malts and all German hops. So it's
That is a genius
not
combination.
really an American brown, except the construction of the recipe is American in that it's a hoppy, relatively roasty brown ale, and it's been dry hopped and everything else. But the hops are all Hallertau and an American variant on Hallertau called was it Liberty or Crystal? I can't remember which one they used. I always use both, but I think they had to settle on one or the other. But it gives it sort of a floral, piney aroma along with the chocolate and the biscuity and the rich brown ale notes. And I am a fan. This one actually is on Untapped. I do know that.
What is it called?
It's called Von Reichnell's White Rabbit Brown Ale.
White Rabbit. I got that.
White Rabbit Brown Ale.
Von what?
Von Reichnell.
Reichnell.
My family's name Weikert in German, way back in Germany, is actually Von Reichnell. It's been sort of transliterated a few times, and now it's Weikert. But
okay, that's
but
cool.
we have our family history, sort of all tracked clear back to southeastern Rhineland, northwestern Bavaria in the 17th century, and we know where we came from. And since you know it, we thought that surely one of them was a brewer. I mean, they're in the right
somewhere.
region.
Yeah,
there had to have been a brewer in there somewhere.
Bet,
so.
yeah.
So, what yeast does this recipe use?
When I brew
Is
it,
it
or
your
when
go-to?
they brew it?
Is it your go-to ale yeast?
It is my German ale yeast.
Right.
I can't promise that whatever brewery contract brewed this one used that. I know they knew that was what it ferments with. So it gives it just a real light, fruity ester and ferments it relatively cleanly.
Ooh, it's yummy.
The aroma is like you said, like an interesting earthy chocolate.
Yeah.
It's very unique.
Is there rye in this?
There is not.
It
No,
gives
this
you
is-
that illusion of that spicy kick of rye.
Yeah, this is Maris Otter, and that's, by the way, that's probably the hopping, because I noticed the first time I threw Hallertau, Liberty, and Crystal all together and just chucked it into the dry hop. When I eventually poured the beer, it had this sarsaparilla aroma to it, which was blowing my. I'm like, I have no idea how I got this, but it was that combination of yeast, of hops, and it seems to have been pretty persistent every time I've brewed it. So. But yeah, it's Maris Otter, it's Crystal 60, it's pale chocolate, and I think I'm missing something. Maybe a little bit of brown malt.
Well, I'm going to make sure not to finish this one so I have something to drink throughout the game. But, Wayne...
I actually have another bottle of that if you want.
Well then.
Sweet.
Bottoms up. No, Wayne, what do you have for us this time around?
There it is.
Your favorite.
Now I feel better.
It is the best of the Happy Fun Time music.
It is the best Happy Fun Time music. Shall we? Hey, howdy, Internet people, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the only podcast trivia segment guaranteed to appreciate and value over time at a rate inversely proportional to the volume of its contents. Today, we'll be
My brain hurt.
playing
Libation or fabrication?
Gasp. A new game.
What?
A new game. I know, a new game. Not one of the same 3 games we've been playing for like the past 6 months.
All my preparation is for nothing now.
Nope, yep.
You had to keep
Exactly.
Josh on his toes.
I do have to keep him on his toes. We'll be taking a look at some of the priciest brews out there in a game tentatively titled Sobering Sticker Shock until I come up with something better. In the vein,
I like that.
In the vein of a well-known TV stable that may or may not rhyme with Lice is Tight. You'll have to guess the price of these beers, and whoever is the closest without going over will receive the almighty points. Unfortunately, points is all you will get, not these beers themselves, unlike the Lice is Tight, as our budget is not comparable to that of daytime television.
Our budget is not tight.
Our budget
Or
is
lice.
not tight.
Or lice.
Or lice. So I will give you, I'll tell you a beer, give you a little information about it. You have to guess what the cost of that beer is, and the closest without going over will get a point. If you get it exactly
$1,
right,
$1.
maybe I'll give you a bonus point. And we will begin,
As always.
not as always, but as most of the time, to
Most
my
of the time.
left with Dan. And our first beer of the evening is Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844 in a 22-ounce bottle. This particular variation of the hipster staple that is PBR is available in China. It is made with German caramel malts and aged in uncharred American whiskey barrels.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
The retail price for a 22-ounce bottle of PBR 1844 is...
Okay, I have 2 questions.
All right.
Are these prices based on right now at this moment?
More or less, yes.
And where did you get these prices from?
From 2 or 3 different sources on the internet. Okay. All right, to be fair, some of the beers coming up were sold at auction.
Because, like, if I buy a beer, like a Hoppy Birthday, I'm going to pay $8 a 6-pack in California, or I'm going to pay $25 a 6-pack in Pennsylvania.
This is not necessarily always the manufacturer suggested retail price, but is the listed price that if you were to walk into a store where this beer is available. Most of these beers are rare or unusual, so you're not going to find them all over the place anyway. Some of them have been sold at auction, and these are the prices they fetched at auction.
Oh, at auction.
Some of them.
See,
Okay.
that even changes the game.
Yeah, we're talking value here.
Yes. But we're starting...
Well, not value, whatever some dumbass is willing to pay.
We're starting in China
Oh, God.
with Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844 in a 22-ounce bottle.
So do you want me to
We'll set
give
you back how much?
Are we talking dollars? Are we talking
Dollars.
Chinese?
Yen?
No, American
dollars.
dollars.
Yuan.
American
Pesos?
dollars.
I was gonna say yen, but I knew that was Japan. So dollars.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Or rupees
Sorry,
if you
Will.
want.
Dollars.
Yeah.
How many dollars?
How many dollars?
22 ounce,
22 ounces.
aged in.
Uncharred
This is
American
gonna be the
whiskey
longest game
barrels
segment ever.
made with German caramel malt.
For a single 22 ounce
for
bottle.
a single 22
How many
ounce
were
bottle.
made?
It's not this is fairly mass produced, but it's mostly available in China.
So was this paid for by someone in China or by someone in the U.S.?
This was paid for by someone who bought this beer and paid this or the equivalent of this in U.S. dollars.
Okay.
$17.
Dan is finally saying a number, and that number is 17. Moving on to Steph.
I don't like this game.
All that really matters is what I have written here.
So this is guess a number.
Yes, but this is basically the cost.
I'm gonna say $35.
You're going to say $35. Okay, finally moving over to Josh.
I am actually going $1.
You're going to say $1.
I think they've overshot the mark.
You
on
think
this
they've
one.
overshot. They have not overshot.
Oh!
The closest. Somebody's cheating. The closest was Steph because the actual price is 40.
Actual? No, you have to say actual retail
The
price.
actual retail value is $44.
Wow. Well done.
Who in their right mind would think that you would pay $44 for a
I
bottle
could
of PBR?
list people that would pay that.
Yes.
True.
That, by the way, that equates to about $2 per ounce. In case you're,
By the way,
in case you're wondering.
a person sitting next to Josh that's not on the show, no cheating and giving people answers.
You can cheat all you want, just don't tell anybody the answers. Okay, so we're moving on to Steph for the next one.
Okay.
And this is Cantillon. It's their goose or gurza, however you feel that word should be pronounced. People have differing opinions. 1978.
Whoa.
How do I get a bottle?
12-ounce bottle.
The oldest Cantillon I ever had was a 96.
Okay. Well, the famed Belgian brewer Cantillon produces coveted, high-quality brews that come with some steeper price tags. A 12-ounce bottle of their goose/gurza bottle during the Carter administration was sold at Boston's Skinner auction.
What year?
1970. The year it was bottled.
What year was it bought?
2014, most likely. Bottled in
$150.
1978. Steph is saying $150 for that. Moving over to Josh, what do you think?
I feel like it's got to be more. I'll say 2 1/4.
2 1/4, 225. I'm assuming you mean $225,
Yes.
not $200.
$2.25. I don't know money how that works.
And finally, Dan.
Depends what the answer is.
$150 and $225.
Those
right?
are the answers so far.
I'll go 180.
You're going to go
Ooh,
180.
splitting the difference.
180. Josh is the closest
Wow.
this time
Oh,
around.
crap.
Because it sold for $397.
I was
see
going to
that.
say $300.
I
I
can see
really
that.
wish
For-
I had that kind of money just to spend
12
$300
ounces.
and whatever dollars on a
Was it
12
any
ounce
good,
bottle
though?
of beer.
I
Well,
mean,
it was-
oxidation is
Yeah.
a thing, people.
Yeah.
It was over $33 an ounce good.
But was
To
it
the
good?
person who bought
Was
it.
it good?
Well,
Was
apparently,
it good?
apparently that's what $33 an ounce cost or tastes like.
If
so.
I had $300, I would pay for it.
Well, you need almost 400.
But it's Cantillon. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was probably interesting, one way or the
It
other.
was probably interesting.
It was probably.
That's what
interesting.
this episode should be called.
Probably interesting.
Probably interesting.
There's a backhanded compliment.
So we're moving over to Josh for our next one. We're also converting to metric for a minute here because this is Tudont Common Ale in a 500 milliliter bottle.
Okay.
I know
In
what that means.
1990, Cambridge archaeologist Dr. Barry Kemp discovered Queen Nefertiti's royal brewery. In brewing chambers buried beneath the Egyptian sand, he found traces of ancient beer residue. Dr. Delwyn Samuel analyzed the residues to quantify the 3,250-year-old recipe, and Scottish brewer Jim Merrington made 1,000 bottles of the Queen's Brew. The first bottle sold for $7,686. Over time, however, the price per 500 milliliter bottle dropped to what?
So So the hint is it's under 7,000.
Yeah.
It is less than 7,686.
$69.95.
If you
Plus
call
shipping
now.
and handling.
But wait, there's more.
I'm
You
gonna
get a ShamWow,
say-
The price I have does not include a ShamWow, just to clarify.
$69.94.
I'm gonna go 3,000 straight.
You're going to go 3,000 whole dollars.
Correct.
Moving over to Dan.
Oh, God.
First guess so far was $3,000. Going once. Going twice.
How about...
Sold! You owe me $3,000 for answering this question. Those are noises, not quantities of money.
$4,500.
Dan is going
Oh, shit.
$4,500.
You're messing up what I was going to do. Oh.
All right, Steph.
$1, Wayne.
It's all
No.
down to you. It's all down to you. Tudont Common Ale.
Is it
3,250
between there, or is it more than that?
recipe.
He can't say that.
Shit.
The first bottle sold
$3,001.
$3,001.
I was doing
Nobody gets a point.
Did we all go over?
Are we
Wait a minute.
all
Wait a
over?
minute. Price is right. If we're all over, we get another guess.
Is that right?
Is that how it works?
Is that how, that's
Oh,
how
yeah.
it works?
All right,
Oh,
Josh.
that's right.
Oh my
There's
God,
a
you're
number.
right.
There's
Yeah,
a
you're
buzzer
right.
that goes
That's
off
right.
and
Ah, shit, I should have said $1. Fuck.
Everybody's over.
Wow. All right. So we know it's between $1,000 and $3,000 now.
The
All
guesses were 3,000, 4,500, and
right.
3,001.
3,001. All right.
All of which are over. I do not know how this game works.
600.
You know, when I said, oh, $1, Wayne, you should have gone
$645.
$645.
$645, says Josh. Dan, your second guess.
$9.99, Wayne.
Do you mean
900?
900?
$999.
$999. All right,
Also,
Steph.
do you think Wayne Brady hosts The Price is Right?
$1,000.
$1,000.
You
Okay.
bitch.
You take advantage of going last. Come on. I should have said $1.
Apparently, I really don't know how this game works because now I have to like put a hole in their lining because everybody's over again.
Oh my God. Wow, who bought that first bottle? Because they got hosed.
So
I should have said $1.
we're gonna
Damn it.
come around again.
All right.
And we're gonna start with Josh.
So less than six. All right, I'm just gonna keep splitting the difference here. I'm gonna go 320.
$320. Dan, what do you think?
$420.
I knew you were going to say that.
Convenient.
I'm saying $1. We're not going
Steph,
through
We're not doing
around.
this again.
Steph is saying $1. A good strategy because you are the closest without going over because the actual price was $75.
Wow. Holy shit. Whoa.
We're dumbasses.
Way overshooting the mark. Everyone on that. And just in case you're wondering, 500 milliliters equates to about 16.9 ounces, which puts it at $4.50 per ounce,
Sorry, listeners.
give or take. All right, we're going to swing back to Dan after that embarrassing display and try to regroup here.
We should have a rule. Whoever's last has to say $1.
Our next beer in the game that I think I now understand the rules of is Sink the Bismarck in a 375 milliliter bottle. Scottish brewery Brewdog produced this whopping 41% ABV brew, which held the record as the world's strongest beer until it was usurped by Brewmeister's Snake Venom, which sits at 67.5% ABV.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it is. We're talking about prices. A 375 milliliter bottle of this freeze distilled quadruple IBA.
Can I say I've actually seen a bottle of this beer?
If
I've
it had a
never
price
had
tag
it.
on it,
I was going to say, did it have a price
if it
tag?
had a
No,
price tag on
because
it,
it
would
was
help.
a personal. It was at the place in Norfolk
Was it a Vision Quest?
where I had the Birch Bar. They have a place that people can rent.
A shrine.
Well, it's not like a refrigerator, but it's like a
It's not like a refrigerator.
What else is it not like?
There are many things in the world that are not like refrigerators.
Oh!
This table
No,
is not like a refrigerator.
People can rent space in this
Oh, to keep their beer.
beer.
Oh, yeah.
So of
I
course,
see.
you're gonna pay
Right.
money to store your beer at a properly proper temperature. But anyway,
Temperature,
somebody
light, control.
had paid
Right,
to
right.
have their Sink the Bismarck in there. They did
Okay.
not have a price tag on them.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess that was all pointless.
It was entertaining. So this quadruple IPA, quote unquote, in a 375 milliliter bottle sells for, Dan, 41% ABV. Sink the Bismarck. Brewdog from Scotland.
$115. $115.
$115 says Dan. All right, we just clarify. Steph.
How many did they make?
They made more than one.
Uh-huh.
I only have one.
That's
beer
right,
on the-
one.
I only have one. I only have one.
That was a psych gag. That's not going to work.
Well, I think you can gather from context. I only have one beer on the list where I actually know how many were made, and it's the next one, not
The
this
next one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. I wanted to say $80, but I want to say $116 so bad. But then I know Josh is gonna say $117.
Oh,
but then
yeah.
what if it's less?
Or what if I go $1?
You could go $1.
I'm gonna need an answer.
116.
117.
Damn
Oh
it!
my God! Everybody's over again. Everybody is over again. No comments
I should
from
have said
Ryan.
$80. I should have said $80.
We're gonna start again.
Dan,
Dan.
$75.
$76.
You bitch.
Oh wow.
$1.
Oh my God.
Oh!
Well,
Though I think I'm low.
Steph is the closest.
God damn it!
With $76.
Yes!
Had you said $80, which
would've been
is
right.
the answer,
Wow.
you would have gotten a bonus
I would
point.
have gotten a.
And the accolades of the internet. As it stands, you only get 1 point.
Damn it!
And yeah, so 375 milliliters is 12.7 ounces, which equates to about $6.30 per ounce.
That wasn't the one that was in the animals, though, was it?
No, but you know which one was?
The next
The
one.
end of history. In a 12-ounce bottle. Another boozy creation from Brewdog, a 55% ABV Eisbach, of which only 12 bottles were produced.
12 bottles. Well, this used to be the most expensive beer until they trumped it on their show.
Infamously packaged in Roadkill. A 12-ounce bottle sold for...
Am I last? Yes.
You are first.
Oh, shit!
The end of history, sold in Roadkill. 12 bottles.
I think I know what this one is.
It was the most expensive beer in a can. It was not in a can.
Sorry.
It was in Roadkill. In Roadkill.
In a squirrel.
In a squirrel. Here we go. There's your new clip. In a squirrel. Oh. $1,516.
A very 15, 16. Clever. All right, Josh, what do you think?
I think $499.
$499. Quite the spread, Dan.
Only 12 bottles, though.
$500.
Dan is going to say $500. You are the closest.
I have a point!
Without going over your very first point of the game, because the answer was $765, which, if you're keeping score at home, is $63.75 per ounce. Moving
That's
on
insane.
to
Wow,
our...
you did a lot of work to put this game together, by the way.
Yeah, really.
Well,
No.
sure. Yeah, I did.
Take the damn credit.
Yes, thank you.
Is this the last beer?
Moving on to our last beer of the game.
That's what I thought.
Dan has 1 point. Josh has 1 point.
Already won it.
Steph has 2 points.
I have 3
Three.
points.
How do you have 3? Oh, you have 3 points. Steph has 3 points. You know why I couldn't tell you had 3 points? Because you guys were so wrong so many times. Cross shit out and recircle shit. But yes, there is another circle there.
I feel like
You
we all
3
should have
points.
lost points for every one of those, but you can't go below 0, though, obviously.
Exactly.
So I think we're all tied.
You cannot divide by 0 either.
Wait, if we're all tied, it's a German Sparkle Party, so I'm okay with that.
Please,
Ja, es ist the party.
Yeah.
please don't
Wo
play
ist
the
the party?
song.
All right. So, Dan or Josh, if you get this exactly right, you can tie.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot of pressure.
So we're going to...
If it's another Brewdog beer, I am rage quitting.
No, this is Cable Car Creek. And a 750 milliliter bottle. 7% ABV American Wild Ale from California's Lost Abbey. Is the most expensive bottle of American-produced beer ever sold at Skinner's auctions. In
What
April,
year?
in April of 2014,
So is Gwen's beer.
A 750 milliliter bottle went for how much? Cable Car Creek.
The most expensive American-produced beer.
Ever sold
Ever
at
sold.
Skinner auctions. Not necessarily ever sold ever to
Sure,
anyone.
yeah. Oh, hell. I'm too low, but let's go $800.
$800, says Josh. This is a nail biter, ladies and gentlemen. Dan, your answer, please. Is that your final answer?
$1,472.
$1.
Wow.
That was quick.
All right, that was quick. Not Steph. Josh.
What?
Oh,
Is the closest
Goddamn.
without going over because the actual price was $923
so close.
for Cable Car Creek in 750 milliliters, which, if you're doing the math, is 25.4 ounces, which is over $36 per ounce. So we're going to add up the scores real quick here, and we do not have
Please don't.
anything near resembling a German.
A gerbil sparkle bar?
We don't have...
But by request of our Twitter follower, we should play the song anyway.
No.
I don't have the whole song.
No, you can look it up.
By the way, the 2011 Cable Car Creek went for $50.
Well, all right, fair
That's
enough.
all we got.
Wow. If you want to hear the entire song, you can become a patron at patreon.com/beerbusters. This is not a gerbil surprise party. Steph has 3 points, so she wins. Yay, whatever. Josh has 2 points. Dan only has 1. Thank you so much for playing. Speaking of Patreon, it's time once again for our Patreon patron roll call. And our patrons who have been super generous this time around are Wolfgang von Koltz and Vicky Victoria Miles. Friends of the show who actually also gifted the three of us beer from Aruba, which is sitting upstairs right now.
I got beer and a t-shirt.
Wow, Steph got a t-shirt too, because, you know.
It's okay. I have enough t-shirts.
Because she's a vegan, but she wears t-shirts when she's drunk. That's it. I'm done.
Okay. Well,
Thanks.
thank you to all
We
the
love you.
patrons.
Patreon.com/beerbusters.
So, on that note,
No, your beers. No, your beers.
Steph, what do we have?
We're changing it up this episode, Dan.
Oh, my God. I never would have thought that.
I'm not doing shit. No, I'll intervene. But I felt as though since we had, for lack of a better word, an expert at the table, why should I spend the time coming up with a Know Your Beer segment when we have someone that can just do it naturally? So I thought since we had a Grandmaster judge, let's let him Grandmaster what he Grandmasters best and tell us about judging. So for the first time ever, 84 episodes in, Josh, I'm turning this segment over to you. Wow. Don't fuck it up.
Oh, I'll do my best. Though, again, the outsourcing of it's an interesting method.
So one thing that Josh wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about while he's here, is this whole idea of judging and evaluating beers. And I've done it, and I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing when I do it. But when we have one of 50 in the world that have a certificate that says they do it really well, why not get advice from the expert?
Is that what the certificate literally says, though? Just says you do this really well.
Oh, yeah. You done good. That's what it says. They're not real eloquent over there at the BJCP.
Hey, gets the point across.
So Josh,
Absolutely.
enlighten us.
Well, I really hate to, sort of demythologize it, but judging and evaluating beer is actually not all that mysterious. And most people do elements of this without really even thinking about it. Doing it well really just is about being aware of what you're doing while you're doing it. So the first step is obviously look at it. Look at what you're about to drink. We eat with our eyes first is a cliche, but it's a good one.
Can I just mention that he is currently swirling water?
A glass of water, yes. I have to drive myself home later.
Nervous habit.
He can't not
Yep.
do it.
It's such nice glassware, though. But before you do anything else, like I said, take a look at it. And while you're taking a look at it, take a second to read up on what you're drinking. This obviously wouldn't be the case in competition because it's all anonymous. We don't know who brewed or anything else. But just while you're sitting around drinking and evaluating for yourself, take a second and read up on the beer that you poured, because it'll give you some sense of what's coming. The best and most sensitive beer judges I know in terms of their palate, they're not like weeping uncontrollably or anything like that. They couldn't pick out a particular beer out of a lineup unless you kind of told them what they were looking for. It's a practical impossibility. One of our first Homebrew Club winter socials, we thought we put together a fun little thing where there was a flight of 6 beers, and they were all winter beers, and people had to try and guess what style each one was. And I think out of 6, our winner had 1. I mean, and it was just dumb luck. You have to set yourself up at least a little bit to know what you're tasting, and luckily we have access to all that information now. So jump on Google the beer that you bought, and again, it's not determinative. You're not looking for it to tell you whether or not you're going to enjoy it or anything, but just get a sense of, okay, this is described as being a roasty beer that's dry hopped with nugget, and so that way you're sort of on the lookout for those flavors. So prep yourself a little bit. And then you should spend about the next, maybe 1 or 2 minutes literally just sniffing the beer. I know that's not the fun part. I don't think anyone ever has gotten drunk that way. I mean, maybe with some of the 63%, icebox or something,
yeah.
but with average beer, that's not going to happen. But it's going to do a lot of things for you. First of all, you're going to be able to evaluate a lot of what you're about to taste. It's easier to parse out those different flavors, components by aroma rather than by swallowing. It's going to slow you down a little bit in your drinking, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's also going to bring out different flavors as you sit and as you swirl the glass, and as the volatiles start coming off, and then those will go away, and then you'll start as you get oxygen into the glass by swirling it, you're going to get different aromas out of it. I've heard people talk about smelling from top to bottom on the opening of the glass, then left to right, and noticing that there are actually different aromas that you get. Depending on where in the glass you put your nose. I mean, you can get a lot out of a beer just by sniffing at it. And
what about sniffing with your mouth open? No, I'm
wow.
I'm like this.
I've actually.
How does that water smell?
How does that work? Can
you
even do that?
Well, I was once told that you should sniff.
I
but
do
then
that
sniff
because
while breathing in.
in a previous Know Your Beer segment, Steph
Whoa.
mentioned that was a recommended thing, and I find that it makes a difference.
I have
Actually.
never done that before.
Now-
I'm going to start
you need to
trying
try
it
it.
now. Yeah, now I'm going to have to do that. I have nothing to add on that.
What about sniffing with your mouth open?
I didn't even know that was an option. I kind of just assumed my mouth had to be
Never thought,
closed.
yeah.
But after you sniff for a while, take your first sip. And what I recommend people do is taste 4 different things with every sip. And what I mean by that is, with your first sip, try to pick out what the most obvious flavor is, and which should be fairly easy. Mm-hmm. And then the second sip, try to actively ignore that flavor, whatever it is, and look for what else is there. In other words, get secondary flavors out of it. The third time in, try to work out, bittering levels. Is it, lightly bitter, moderately bitter, really intensely bitter? And then the last time in, jump in and see, well, how does it finish? Is it sweet? Is it balanced? Is it dry? And what flavors sort of linger on the tongue? And once you're done with that sort of more formal, assessment of it, after that, just forget about it. Just take a few sips and just enjoy it. And it's the height of hypocrisy. It's the
Hypocrisy.
It's the height of hypocrisy for me to say this, but I really think it's not possible to evaluate a beer in just 1 or 2 ounces. I say that's hypocritical because in competition, that's all we get, and we judge a couple of dozen beers, and best of show you'll line up 30 1.5 ounce samples, but if you're not in a competition setting, drink a full pint or a half pint of it before you make any decisions. I've had lots of beers that the first couple of sips I wasn't a fan of, but then after drinking 4 or 5 ounces of it, all of a sudden I found, no, I actually do kind of like this, or maybe it tastes differently as your palate gets warmed up, especially if it's your first beer of the night. You shouldn't judge any beer too harshly if you're coming in cold, so to speak.
I think it goes the other way too. Sometimes if you take your first sip, you're like, ooh, this is really good. But then it's impossible to finish a pint of it as well.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and that goes to sort of knowing what you've ordered too. And especially if they're not serving the right volumes of it. I once ordered, I think it was Dragon's Milk. It was some super intense Russian Imperial Stout. And they poured me, a heaping pint. It was like cresting the glass, and if I had finished that, I think I'd be dead. Nice. Yeah, know what's in your glass, and as you're drinking too, get a sense of what you like about it. Try to find a hook. Say this exhibits this flavor better than any other beer I've ever had. And if there's nothing like that, then that might be a beer that you can just sort of jettison out of your memory. Maybe you don't really need it. I find that appreciating beer is a lot about picking favorites, finding beers that you really, really, really enjoy. And if nothing else, it gives you a check on your own perceptions, because if you have it once and think, ooh, I really, really loved, Green Flash, Red Ale or West Coast Red, and then you go back to that beer 3 months later and you don't like it as much, well, then maybe your tastes are a little more variable. Maybe you don't have as consistent a perception as you think you do. So I try to find something in each beer that I can sort of just hang my hat on and say, okay, that's what characterizes that beer. And honestly, if there's nothing like that, then order something else. There's a lot of beer out there to try. In terms of tasting and evaluating, you got to decide what you want out of it. If you're evaluating it because you're looking for the best IPA that's ever been made, then you need to be more critical. But if you're just looking for a good night out, of drinking, then don't worry about that so much. I think I wrote one of my blog posts more or less about this, which is that sometimes we lose the idea that it's perfectly okay just to order a beer, just to sip it and drink it and relax and be there. You don't need to tear apart every single beer looking for faults.
Was that the missionary position blog post?
I think it was, yeah. That was a great line from Barbara.
Yeah.
Sitting in the middle of Starbucks, and she says, because I don't want to rag on her, but she sometimes says things not appreciating there are people around, and she doesn't have much.
That's why you married her, right?
We often say things not appreciating that it's being recorded and put on the internet, so that's fine.
She is going to listen to this too. She wouldn't mind, because she knows this is true. She's just about the sweetest and friendliest person you've ever met, and as a result, she feels no particular need for a filter because she doesn't get in trouble with it like the rest of us would. But every once in a while, it means we're sitting in a crowded Starbucks, and she says, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with the missionary position once in a while." I'm like,
and
damn
you're
it.
like, blog
And it's
post.
one of those record scratch and the whole room
yeah,
gets
exactly.
silent. And, like an old woman in the corner goes, "You know what? You're right."
Yeah. I literally whipped out my phone. I'm like, I gotta use that somehow.
Nice.
Because that was what we were talking about. We were at Bistro on Bridge, I think, at Phoenixville the night before, and somebody had ordered just one exotic beer after another. And I'm like, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't spend a whole night just pounding down 8-ounce pours of these super high intensity beers. And that's when she came out with this line, and I thought, damn it, that's a really good point. Sometimes just be prosaic, be boring. Just order a simple beer. There's nothing wrong with it. You see Firestone Union Jack IPA, on tap for $4
Amazing
a glass.
beer.
That's a phenomenal value.
And when it comes to
drink a
David
great
Walker,
beer.
the missionary position is
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
Oh, boy.
Would you want to waste it? I mean, anyway.
I'm curious.
Whatever I can get.
As far as judging beers in a competition, because I feel like that's a whole different sort of monster. You have to consider the category, the style.
Yes.
So if it's an excellent beer, if it's amazing and tastes great, but it's supposed to be a red ale and it tastes like an IPA,
Yes.
not so much. So I feel like you got to approach that completely different.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it helps that the guidelines are very broad. So the sort of the span between American Amber and IPA, there's a fair amount of overlap there. And in fact, the competition we just had this past or a couple of weeks ago, War of the Words up at Keystone Homebrew Supply. On the Best of Show table, we have this beer that as a red IPA, and I thought, man, it's not noticeably different from an amber. But then you whip out the guidelines, and you're like, well, okay, but it allows that. So you're judging to a known standard, not because we're tight-assed and don't want to have fun or anything, but it's because when people enter the beer in competition, if the feedback isn't based on some objective standard that we've all agreed to, then it's not worth much. If I just write that, ooh, I really liked that beer, you didn't learn anything from that. So that becomes then a much more technical experience where we're detailing every aroma and flavor and mouthfeel and appearance perception that we get. We're assessing that against the published standard that we're using, and it can be any standard. It doesn't have to be the BJCP. But it has to be something we've all known about, so that you know where to enter your beer. And we run into these problems sometimes where you have a beer that is clearly not in the right category.
Right.
It's been entered, and either someone made a mistake when they were packaging up their entries and accidentally put the Belgian triple label on the dry stout or something, and we pour it and we're like, well, this is clearly not right. And we do our best to sort of find the right beer if we can, but if we can't, we have to judge it as it is. And what ends up happening is we give them as as good an assessment of it as we can, but on the scoring, it usually sort of caps out around 30 out of 50 if it's just in the wrong category. Right. Aside from that, though, as judges go, when we get into these style variations, if we get something where it's where it says, oh well, it says low to moderate esters, but this feels like medium high to me, we're not going to penalize a beer for that if it works for the most part.
Right.
Or it'll be like a 1 point out of 50 deduction. It's not going to stop us from rewarding a really, really great beer.
Right.
So it's both more rigid and less rigid than people think.
So as far as you mentioned earlier about having the same beer at a different time, you know, a different place, whatever.
Different circumstance,
how that affects your perception. How do you sort of, when you're judging a fish, because these people have, you know, put time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears into these beers, and so you want to be as objective as possible.
Not all of them have the luxury of having Stony Creek Homebrew as their
exactly.
their homebrew club.
Exactly. So how do you sort of like to yourself say like taste a beer and think, I'm not in the mood for this beer right now, but it's very well executed?
You have to train yourself up on that. It's just a function of how many reps you've had at the judging table. Your first couple of times out, if you get stuck with a category you hate, it can be a real slog. I would say I think I've judged in about 100 competitions, and after 15 or 20 full flights, 15, 20 competitions with 2 flights each, you've now judged almost everything. You've been exposed to almost everything. And sometimes the greatest curse is getting a category where you're like, oh, I love those beers. Because sometimes they're not great. And even
ruining it for me.
That can be a struggle. And conversely, like every once in a while I get tagged with, you know, judging Belgian strong ales, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, no, I don't want to do that. But then I just get this great run of doubles and triples and Belgian golden strongs, and I'm like, oh, no, that was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
So there's less of that than, for me anyway. I can't speak for every judge. The only category I really sort of rebel against are these Belgian strong ales. Everything else I range from sort of being, you know, happily tolerant of to really enjoying.
Right.
So it's not as much of an issue, at least on my end. But I would imagine most judges have developed a pretty thick skin on that front.
I love drinking beer, obviously. I just wanted to say that in case anybody was questioning, in case anybody wasn't sure. Yeah. But like judging beer, like I could say, oh, I like this beer, I don't like that beer, but it's a lot of pressure. I imagine you get acclimated to it, and you know you've had the experience, you've had the education, you've done it, but I know Steph has judged a few competitions.
I just don't like to hurt people's feelings.
Exactly, and there's that weird sort of thing, especially as someone being a home brewer yourself.
And I've judged beers that were brewed by people that I am friends with.
Yeah, and the worst thing is, even in a blind judging, which most should
you
be,
still know.
You know whose beer is whose if you're familiar with that
hard.
person.
It's very hard. Yeah. I do not have near the experience or the knowledge when it comes to judging that Josh does. But I always try, when I am judging a beer, I try to just stick with the facts.
Yeah.
This is what the style should be.
Just the facts.
This is what I'm experiencing, and you know, it's business.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing personal. It's just business, and that's how it is. And I imagine early on in your judging experience, it had to have been hard. You've been doing it so long that it doesn't probably faze you anymore, but. It's hard to get past.
You do get in quite a rhythm with it, I'll say that. But you're right, early on, and it's still true to an extent, where you want to be as helpful as you can, but sometimes, and we have only so much time and so much space, you end up having to write things that are going to come across as very abrupt.
Right.
And you just have to hope that.
But sometimes you just got to get to the point.
Yeah. Oh,
just
absolutely.
pull the Band-Aid off and just say it.
And again, all of our names, email addresses, everything are right there on the score sheet when they get it back. And they're free to contact us if they have a problem with what we wrote or if they want to ask further questions. And that's happened to me one time out of
I think
thousands of beers. But
if you're entering your beers in a competition, obviously you're either like building towards going commercial, or you genuinely want to better yourself and you want to see where you stand. And I think part of that is, like we said 2 hours ago when we started this episode.
What time is it?
It's constructive criticism. And I think part of being a good brewer is being able to listen to people when they say, hey, this isn't quite right or this is a little off, and not being like, well, if you don't like it, don't fucking drink it.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And a substantial part of what goes into the exam when you sit the BJCP exam is we're assessing your feedback. Is it technically accurate for the problems that you noted? And did you communicate that effectively and as positively as you can and in a constructive way? So that's something we try to train up in judges when we can. That's not to say there aren't judges out there who are dicks, who really let you have it, who write mean-spirited things.
Beer? Sucks.
Oh, the things I've read. Oh, my. And it
tastes like my cat shit in an ashtray.
So they use Simcoe.
Yeah.
That would be delicious.
A Brauk beer with Simcoe.
A Brauk beer
plus some phenolic yeast.
Beer me! Beer me! Beer me! Beer 2, fight.
So what are we
Okay.
starting with this round?
This is an American Amber Ale.
All right.
Goes by the name Iron Dice Amber, and it is only the second American Amber Ale I have ever made.
And the first one won a medal.
Yeah. And though it wasn't exclusively mine, it was made with my friend Steve. It was very cleverly called that amber that Steve and Josh made, because we needed a name for it because we were literally entering a competition that day. And we're like, well, what do we call it? I don't know. It's the amber we made. All right. Well, the amber we made sounded a little weird, so we threw our names in. And that was it.
Nice.
But yeah, fun style. I mean, it lets you do a lot. Amber ales are. I don't know anyone who hates American amber ales. I don't know that you could. You know, they have some caramel malt. They're a little fruity. They have some bitterness. They can be dry hopped or not. It doesn't really matter.
Something for everyone.
Yeah, they're very much sort of down the middle beers. If I had to introduce someone to American style hoppy beers, I'd just hand them just any amber. Trogue Hopback Amber is a great example of the style. I don't know how anyone couldn't love it.
This is quite tasty. And
It is hoppier than I would have expected.
Yeah, but not so much so that someone who does not appreciate hoppy beers wouldn't be able to drink this beer.
Right, exactly.
This one is hoppier than I anticipated it being, simply because this was brewed to be poured at is it the Valley Forge Beer Festival, the one around Christmas?
Yes. At the Navy Yard?
What
do you call that
the one at
thing?
the Oaks
at the
Convention
Expo
Center,
Center.
yeah. So I was tasked with brewing the hoppy beer.
The hoppy beer.
The hoppy beer. For some reason in our club, we don't have anybody who brews like a ton of IPAs, which is so rare.
That is
Wow.
unusual.
Like
yeah, that's
every
strange.
homebrew club in the universe is just wall-to-wall IPAs and Belgians.
Yeah.
Our meetings, it's like, all right, so who's got the English beer? I've got my Baltic Porter over here. Like, I mean, it's we do a lot of lagers and sort of unconventional styles for whatever reason. So
You should have done an IPL then.
I've thought about it, but I can't see what the utility of it is. Why wouldn't I just use a clean ale yeast? I mean, it's not like you can taste it.
Touche.
Yeah.
But I and my very first experience with an IPA was Jack's Abbey. So, and in my opinion, they've perfected it. So I started with perfection. But I
Sure.
love that clean, crisp finish of a lager with just
Yeah.
this intense, lovely hoppiness.
Yeah.
It goes together brilliantly. Well, and they do it brilliantly as well. But I've also had some IPLs in the meantime that have been pretty terrible. But I feel like you could brew a good one.
It's certainly an option. I did at one point put together some sort of IPA experiments because it's not something I ever brewed extensively because I never really saw the purpose of it just because there are so many great IPAs in the market. Like, why would I mean, for somebody who got started brewing because I wanted to brew a beer I couldn't get anymore, brewing an IPA just seemed like a waste of a brew day.
True.
But eventually I sort of, like everybody does, we double back to beers that we never thought to make. I don't know any brewer who's been brewing for a couple of years who doesn't think, gee, I wonder if I could make a really good American lager. And eventually you sort of make it back to those styles that you've neglected. So, it's certainly worth a consideration. IPL should work. It should be a great sort of neutral platform for hop flavor and a lot of sort of late hop additions, especially in Whirlpool and things like that.
Have any of you guys had, speaking of IPLs, Yingling came out with an IPL a few months back.
They did.
Yes, they did.
They did.
We'll stick with it.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, they're sort of,
It's becoming a thing.
they're a bigger brewery. They're well known, and it's, being still an experimental style
Sure,
according to BJCP.
and I definitely appreciate that they did it.
Yeah. And
St. Boniface came out with an IPL that was quite delicious.
Yes, they did.
But John knows how to lager, so.
John knows how to lager.
So.
Bringing lager back.
I mean, he brewed an amazing Pilsner, so why would he not be able to brew an amazing IPL?
What hops are in this?
This
Out
is
of
all
curiosity.
100% nugget
Nice.
and nothing
Nice.
else. I was cleaning out a pound of nugget.
There you
And
go.
I thought,
It works,
let's really nugget this thing up. And
Let's really nugget this thing up. That should have been the name of the beer.
nugget
The
this thing
hell?
up, yeah. And there's almost always one beer a year, or one beer at the end of every year that I make with all my leftover hops, and I just make just a big double IPA and just work them all in somewhere and just try to kind of pair them off so that they have complementary flavors. This was not that. I happen to just have the remains of a 1 pound bag of nugget that I've been using for 14 months, and so this got the remnants of that. Hops are wonderfully survivable. If there's one brewing ingredient you should be buying in bulk, it's hops.
Right.
I mean, because when people tell me, "Oh, I'm making a lambic, I got some good aged hops." Oh, yeah, really? How old are the hops? Oh, I've been aging them for 6 months in my refrigerator. I'm like, have you ever heard what these breweries do to their hops? They abuse their hops. I mean, they really work them over. If you keep your hops in the freezer, they're almost immortal at that point. I mean, you can use them forever. Yeah, the amber's a good one. I like that.
It's very drinkable, but very characterful as well. It's got a lot going on.
Yeah, low ABV does not need to mean boring.
Yeah, no, the real fun starts with this next one. And I'm making no promises on this one because I only have it because of an accident. I brew an English barley wine every 4 years during the Olympics.
Oh, that makes sense.
And
is this Sochi good barley wine?
Did somebody tell you how much I hate puns? I mean, just like with like deep in my soul, hate.
Oh,
no.
All right,
and
well,
I thought you and Wayne were going to be lifelong
I liked
friends.
you a lot, but you just went down just a little bit there. But that's
No,
okay.
no, it's
To each their own.
Wait,
Takes all kinds.
where are the Olympics this year?
I don't know.
Is it Brazil?
Rio, yeah.
We'll think of something.
Yeah.
Rio good barley wine.
God, I hate you both.
Oh, yeah, I brew
That was too perfect.
I brew it every 4 years. That's what I was saying.
And the next one will be a pun.
Yeah, it's going to have to be now.
Make it so.
But I open 3 bottles of it a year. One at Thanksgiving, one at New Year's, and then one on my birthday. And this year I happened to forget to do 2 of those 3. So
one of them is on a podcast.
I just happen to have a couple extra bottles. But the problem is it's now older than it's ever been when I've opened it. So I don't know what we're going to get. It usually hits its stride right around 2 years. That's when the scores on it tend to sort of go up and the flavors really, integrate beautifully. So this might be a little too oxidized, but maybe not. You never know with these high alcohol beers. Sometimes they just get beautifully complex. Sometimes they go bad.
Could we all taste it before you do?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to hear what Josh has to say first.
Well, so do I. I just want to taste it. I just want to give him a look with like,
Like, this is fucking oxidized. Give him that look, even though it might not really be.
yeah. I was going to say like make him nervous, but
Scare him a little bit.
does he really care what I think? He knows what he's doing.
That's true. He doesn't care.
Well, plus it's like the second to last bottle of it. I have nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not sitting on 5 cases of it at home and
I'm gonna make sure
like shit. I was going to pour this at my wedding, and now what am I going to do?
Wayne.
It is pretty though. God, look how
It
clear
is
they
very
get.
pretty.
So, what would you score this for appearance?
Oh, appearance is almost always 3 points out of 3 points. I tell my judge trainees when they're taking their class, just don't be a dick about it. If it's generally the right color, generally clear, and has head, then just give it 3 points.
If it has head, give
Nobody,
it 3.
nobody's winning or losing, medals in competition on appearance, really.
True. Okay, so what would you give this aroma?
Oh, God. Well, I haven't smelled it yet. I was waiting on the reaction shots.
I smelled it, but I haven't smelled it with my mouth open yet.
I've just been using my nose, not my mouth nose. Although, since you ask, it actually is a slightly different experience with the mouth open. In fairness,
It
this is fun.
I'm telling you,
this is what I love about beer. I learned something today. This is awesome.
Yay! I taught Josh something.
I'm not sure it's any different necessarily, but it feels differently. I'm wondering if in
all that
certain types of
matters.
beers it would bring out different flavors or aromas. I'm super happy with the aroma personally.
It is very nice.
I think it smells awesome.
I'm not reacting.
Was I supposed to have a poker face? I'm sorry.
Poker face?
Poker face. Poker face.
No, I
Or
smell a
boner
lot
face.
of caramel.
Boner
I smell a
face.
lot of
Getting a lot of dark fruit.
Again, I don't smell oxidation, which I don't.
No.
I don't smell bad oxidation. I don't smell staling or
It's
that
fruity.
quasi-metallic kind of.
Thanks.
Oh wow, yeah, man,
It
that
is-
held
yeah.
up.
Yeah, it did.
Yes, it did.
Barley wine
I
is
have
not
nothing to
one
credit
of
to.
my like it's weird. Like I've had barley wines that I absolutely love, and then I've had a lot that I'm kind of I've never had any that I would like hated, but it's just not.
I've
yeah,
had barley wines I've
definitely.
hated.
All right, fair enough.
Thick,
That
syrupy.
has had-
yeah.
Ugh.
And that's what it is. It's when people go so overboard with it that you're
Yeah.
drinking you're basically just drinking carbonated scotch at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, it's,
This is delightful.
We're at St.
This is a barley wine I can get behind. A barley wine I can get behind.
Steph seal of approval.
This is
So
nice.
what is the ABV on this? Did we mention that?
it's about 10.5.
Okay.
Doesn't taste like 10.5.
They never do. In fact, that was something I struggled with in competition for a while. Is that it's, because I ferment pretty cold, I end up with beers that are just like kind of almost too clean. I enter a Doppelbock and nope. The judge would say, well, but clearly this is not really a Doppelbock. I'm like, no, it really is. I can show you the numbers.
Do you know how to use a hydrometer?
Yeah, and I actually at one point...
This has got to be 6 point something percent.
You're a Josh. It must be 6%.
My first ice bock, and they're usually very, very high alcohol
14,
beers.
15.
I made just sort of my standard Doppelbock, and I was doing the freeze distilling process there, and I didn't appreciate how long it would take to get rolling, so I started at like 3 in the afternoon, and by about 1 in the morning, it still was not forming ice crystals. I'm like, well, I gotta go to bed. It's it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. I woke up the next morning at like 7 o'clock. I go downstairs and I shake the keg, and it was like I was shaking up like a margarita on the rocks. It was like all ice, and I was like, "Oh no!" So I rack out from under it, and I had concentrated it by more than 40%, and so I had this 15% plus ice bock, and I entered it in competition as an ice bock, and I was told this is nowhere near an ice bock. This tastes like a Doppelbock, so I entered it as a Doppelbock. Nope, way too clean. No way it's a Doppelbock. This thing ended up competing at 15% as a traditional Bock.
Wow.
And I wish I could have just walked up to the judge and shaken him and
You
said...
should look at this and be like, okay, have a whole pint.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
And then walk that line.
This is too clean. Drink all of it.
So
I dare you.
The next time around, I actually had to rough it up a little bit. I added some rye. I threw some things in there to make it come across as a little more like prickly and spicy, because that's what people were expecting.
And then eventually just gave up and put a shot of bourbon in it. What do you want?
A shot of cheap bourbon.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see how this one aged, because it's almost brandy-like. I mean, it's got a really, really pleasant fruity flavor to it.
But it's dangerously easy to drink.
It really is.
I feel like the aroma, while not like alcohol hot, has that, like that barley wine fruity, like deep, rich character. You're like, okay, there's a lot going. There's a.
But then you drink it and you're like, oh
but
yeah,
it does
I could drink a
easily.
pint of this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, but.
But you could.
But
I will. YOLO.
Yeah. There's like a really nice vanilla flavor in the back end that kind of rounds it out a little bit.
Which is almost certainly oxidation, which is fine. At high alcohol levels, oxidation does good things for beer, so long as it's not muting the flavor. So, correct. I mean, just if it's oxidized because in the production process or packaging you're splashing the hell out of it, that's going to be bad oxidation. You're just going to get a stale, muted, flat, flabby flavor. If it went in relatively clean and you're just getting oxidation from what seeps in from around the crown cap, that plus the age plus the alcohol translates into some really nice stuff. And you get those vinous, barrel characters out of it, even though it was never aged in wood or anything like it. So but again, you're rolling the dice. Beer, as we all know, is meant to be drank almost immediately in almost every case. This beer, when it's brand new, when it's fresh, when I drink it 3 months in, just tastes like graham crackers. It's shockingly simple. It doesn't taste like anything, and then at about a year, it starts picking up those more developed flavors. But I am super psyched about this.
Good.
Now I wish I had a much more.
It's
now I'm pissed.
really,
I've got like one bottle left.
I do not like barley wines, but I appreciate the style, but this is a barley wine that I love.
And it's got just a tiny bit of tartness to it.
Yeah. How many medals has this recipe won?
Hell, this beer alone has probably won 6. The recipe overall, I don't know, every time I make it. Overall, about 93% of the recipes win medals in competition.
You don't just walk around with your medals around your neck.
My wife wants me to.
Awesome.
At competitions, when I win more than one, I just pocket them because I get embarrassed very easily. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't celebrate my own birthday. If I can, I'm out of the state, preferably out of the country for it. I mean, I don't really like
the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Literally true. Once I was on. I think we were in literally. I think we were in Greenland one year on my birthday on a cruise ship, just crossing the Atlantic, and that's
not
my
in the
ideal
Pacific
birthday.
Ocean. I was just going to say
not
literally the Pacific
mid-ocean. Though,
okay.
was my point.
In an ocean.
In an ocean.
Or near an ocean.
If that's true, I think at that point we were in the Labrador Sea or
I don't even
Sargasso Sea. Scary stuff.
So of all of the awards that you've won, I mean, there's usually some sort of prize that comes along with all of this. What is the coolest prize or award that you've won from a homebrew?
Hanging on my wall is one of the first things I ever won. Hanging on my wall is a throw rug from Sierra Nevada. This just beautifully embroidered Sierra Nevada logo throw rug. and it was grommeted and everything, so it was clearly meant to be displayed. I somehow talked my wife into letting me hang that in our great room wall. It's like the single largest art piece in our home.
Nice.
And I think of it like a beer pelt. It's like a brewing skin, and I get to hang it on the wall. And the coolest thing my wife ever won, because she also brews, and she's not often, but she's got a way better batting average than I do. It's astonishing. She also won from Sierra Nevada, because for a while the local distributor just had all kinds of awesome branded stuff. It was this old like radio flyer sled, like with their logo branded on it. And it's gorgeous. I forget the manufacturer, but they make these sort of antiqued, old timey kind of sleds. And she won it for, I think it was a fruit beer that she had made, and that's just hanging over the fireplace in my brewery. And it's just the coolest thing in the world, and it's all lit. She's very proud of it too.
As she should be.
She shows everybody, and doesn't even drink.
Wait, what?
What?
Doesn't drink beer. Doesn't drink anything really. She is fantastically sensitive to alcohol.
There's a female Rich out there.
Yeah, but who brews beer?
Yeah.
That's true. Well, Rich,
Wow.
he's my
You're his wife.
janitor.
He's going to help you clean up or whatever.
Well, she's also a pianist and a music teacher, and so she likes pointing out that I think it was Beethoven who was deaf.
That's
And
true.
so, yeah.
That's very
she's
true.
She's like,
Wow.
I don't drink beer, but so what? Doesn't mean I can't do
some of
it.
his best music was written while he
I
was
think
deaf.
that may have been profound. He just said.
That was deep.
I think so.
I think we have another beer.
I think
We do. We have one more. It's
that may or may not be
It's
high
a,
enough.
it's a Russian
Only one.
Imperial Stout that has. Well, I actually have just bought a random bottle of Irish Red there if you want it.
Sure.
There's more?
Well, why don't we do that?
Should we do that before?
I was going to say, let's do that as
Yep.
a
Are
little,
you gonna
we'll do
do
that as a
Irish Red first?
little palate cleanser.
Okay.
No. There we
I
go.
do like that whenever I write Imperial Stout in my notes, I write Imp Stout.
Imp
Stout.
But I think Imp Stout should be a thing.
Well, if it's a
Imp Stout.
Russian, you write RAS. RIS.
Yeah,
Alright.
but I could be like, wait,
You
what
like
does that
Imp
say?
Stout?
Imp Stout.
This is a very odd experience after the barley wine.
Oh, interesting.
boy.
In fact, that's a little tip we left out in the tasting. If you're going to be drinking beer and tasting beer and evaluating beer, work from least intense to most intense.
intense, yeah.
Always.
AKA don't drink an Irish Red after a barley wine.
Yeah, that's
ought to be
that's
interesting.
the long form title. But though I will say, drinking beers in strange orders can be a very interesting sensory experience. I remember the first time I drank, I think it was Sam Adams. You drink a Boston lager from Sam Adams, followed by a Scotch ale from Sam Adams, and then double back on the Boston lager. Tastes completely different.
I can imagine.
There
yeah.
is no comparison. It's like they were totally different beers. Brings out all kinds of weird fruit flavors. This now just tastes, well, like Yingling lager after the barley wine. It's just a little too neutral.
It is pretty subdued, yeah, after this.
This is one of the, and I was excited to get to this one because the mouth open sniffing thing, my mouth nose, it actually makes a difference here. I find that when I sniff with my mouth open, I'm getting a lot more bacon and like brown malt aroma out of it, and
You
I
know what?
don't.
You're right,
and I
actually,
don't, and
yeah.
I don't get that when I just stick my nose in it because
Yeah.
I think the alcohol is less apparent when you're, getting sort of a half dose of it with your mouth nose.
It really tickles my ear tongue in a very peculiar fashion.
This beer is pretty amazing.
This is very
too.
good. It's got a nice roasty character to it.
You'd be
Speaking
shocked
of
how
candy
often
bacon.
that isn't present in stouts.
Yeah.
No, usually it's more syrupy and
Yeah,
hot.
yeah.
you get like a dehusked dark malt flavor out of it. It just tastes
Mm-hmm.
kind of sweet and I don't want to say tacky. That's the wrong word, but 'cause that's a tactile sensation. But it comes across as more licoricey, like black licorice,
Yeah.
as opposed to being roasty. But it's a stout. Roasted barley should be evident. Whatever
Yeah.
else might be going on, but people sometimes get worried about getting something that's too husky, too tanniny, and they kind of back it off. It's like I can't tell you how many times I've judged sour beers in competition, and we're like, for the love of God, just give me one that's actually sour.
Yeah.
It's like this is just a
That's a very good point, yeah.
nonstop parade of wheat beers,
Yeah.
none of which are sour.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for the obvious stuff first if you're going.
And I
If
think
you're
I
brewing.
think you're right. I think like the stout style has come to be more associated with like a sweeter, creamier, almost
Oh, yeah.
desserty type of character.
Absolutely, and there are so
it's
many
lost that sort of
so many milk stouts and so many
Yeah.
sweet stouts and
Yeah.
so, and that's fine and tropical stouts and they're great. But at the end of the day, and I think one best to show it were the words. Actually, we had this what couldn't have been more than a 4% dry Irish stout, and it tasted incredible, just richly chocolatey and roasty, but not heavy or not syrupy, not sweet. So,
Right.
but yeah. And the trouble you run into also with as alcohol levels start creeping up in beers is alcohol adds sweetness.
Yeah.
And if you're not counteracting that with something, if you're just looking at your gravity and amping that up and not balancing it with something else, then you're going to end up with a
sugary,
sweet alcohol bomb.
syrupy, yeah.
And which is why it's so much fun when breweries get it right.
So you've brewed every style. You've clearly mastered every style. What is your favorite to brew?
Oh, wow.
What do you aim for the gotcha journalism here?
Yeah. I think that the best all-around beer in sort of what we can make with barley and hops and malts is the German Stücke Alt. So a high alcohol German alt beer. And by high alcohol I mean like 7%. Right? So it's not like super high. But you get done well, you get this rich malty flavor where you get caramel and you get biscuit and bread, but you also get something that almost tastes like, and this is the wrong descriptor, but it's how it always comes across in my brain. It tastes like leaves in fall. I mean, you get this almost like the smell like sandalwood and bark. I mean, it comes across so beautifully, but then at the same time, the hops in it, and it is a fairly hoppy beer, come across as being very, very floral and very, very perfumey and very herbal, and it's just wonderful when it's done well.
Sweet earth.
There's a really nice smokiness out of it.
There is, there is a distinct roasty, smoky character that is sometimes lost in imp stout.
But yeah, that'd be the brown malt, though. Brown malt adds a little bit of, for lack of a better descriptor, Taylor pork roll kind of aroma to it. It's
yeah, exactly.
It's close enough to the right word, but okay.
No, that is seriously one of the things though that I tell one of the things I tell judges when they're studying for the exam, and because we grade them on descriptors, and I say just say the first thing that pops into your head, no matter how stupid it sounds to you. Yeah. It may be the perfect descriptor for something, and the craziest thing I've ever written on a score sheet was a mead. Made, and as it turns out, the mead maker is actually now the owner and head mead maker at Haymaker Meadery. Okay. And this was sort of a test batch that they had done. It was in competition. And I wrote that, and that's the only reason I remember it is because he brought me the score sheet later and showed it to me. It said it smelled like if Captain Crunch was sitting on a Tahitian beach next to a half-naked native girl covered in coconut oil. Because it had this rich, like bready cereal aroma to it, but it also had this coconut aroma coming over the top, and at the same time, it was very fresh smell. Like it all came together that way, and I just had this image that popped into my head of an animated Captain Crunch next to a young lady in a grass skirt.
That beats my Fruity Pebbles.
That was a very impressive array of different styles of beer, and I'm almost at a loss for words.
Party pants. Party pants.
Definitely party pants. It's amazing the flavor journey you just took us on. I mean, starting even with, I don't like beets, but starting with the beet saison and going all the way through the imperial stout, the imp stout, if you will. It's clear to see why you have meddled in every category, and it's so obvious why you are one of 50 people in the world that hold the title that you hold. You're the guy that appreciates the title that you have, and you appreciate the work that you've done. You share the knowledge, and you do it in a way that you can show the knowledge with the beers that you make, and that's incredible.
Dan is getting very passionate.
You can show the knowledge.
I am, and I look forward to our Mr. Beer competition.
Yes, indeed.
As do I.
And Wayne and I are judging.
Yep. Fair enough.
God. I should probably actually brew this thing now.
It's on.
Yeah, I have to get myself a kit. Swing by Bed Bath & Beyond and get rocking.
Yep. Or Kmart. Kmart has them.
Kmart, Walmart, Target, you name it, they all have it.
I want to know who has the least pull-through on Mr. Beer kits, and that's where I'll
you
go.
could probably get one at like
Amazon.com.
a gas station.
Oh, hell no. No way. No, that's going to be way too fresh.
Yeah. Speedway, Sheets.
What I would actually love to do is get together like all the, because it's not just Mr. Beer anymore. Like you find these things like at Williams Sonoma now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get like a whole range of them and see if there's differences in quality.
Get the same one from each retailer that has them and just brew them all the same style.
Yeah.
Even
Cabela's.
Cabela's has them.
I feel like now
Wow.
I need to get mine.
It's
from
beer you
Cabela's.
can make outdoors.
And then you can
right.
throw some, deer jerky into it or whatever. Because
Damn
why
right.
not?
Or stag semen.
Wow.
Oh.
we've gone that far.
It's a white ale.
done.
It's a white ale.
Just
white
imagine.
ale.
Just imagine what the outtakes are.
Can we end this craziness?
I'm trying.
Dan, play the outro music for Christ's sake. I want to hear that piano.
Hit it.
Where's the piano?
the piano. Well, I have
No.
to before we get to there.
Beer-simple.com. That's all you need to know.
Before
right,
we
yeah.
get to
That's
our
why we're all
own
here.
outro, we have to, of course, plug beer-simple.com. Not beer simple, but beer-simple. And don't be the dick that spells out dash. It's beer hyphen, like the punctuation mark.
Like a minus sign.
Yes, like a minus sign.
Also, if you just Google Beer Simple blog,
That too.
it is one of the top 2 or 3 results there.
Or you can Twitter that because I know
Listen,
that was
guys,
the Twitter
it's
handle.
it's the internet. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, if you want to find it, you know what? If you can't find it with the information you currently have, just don't bother.
Well,
It's
go
okay.
to our
It's
Facebook
okay.
page. I think
It's
we
okay.
share
It's okay.
every
We've
single
shared a
article.
few posts at
Yes.
least, and
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
it will be linked from this episode post on beerbusterspodcast.com. And if
Sure
you
it
can't
will.
spell that based off of my drunken ramblings from that, I apologize. This episode was brought to you, of course, by Audible, audibletrial.com/beerbusters.
I'm not so sure it was anymore, to be honest with you.
They don't know what happened to the outtakes.
They're owned by Amazon. Big deal.
audibletrial.com/beerbusters. You know the deal by this point.
You can go to patreon.com/beerbusters because they don't care what the fuck we say.
Score.
I
That's
like
true.
how you cut me off in the middle of that because you knew what was coming out of my mouth.
You knew what was coming out of my mouth.
Not going into, but coming out.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
For Christ's sake,
Something
seriously.
warm.
I think Wayne wanted this. That brings us to
There it is.
Yay!
of another episode of Beer
Sweet
Busters.
relief.
My
Yeah,
ears
that's
are
about
happy.
right.
Sweet relief.
Yeah, exactly. This was a lot of
Probably
fun.
interesting.
It's probably interesting. Yes, it was probably interesting.
And happily tolerant.
Yes, and Josh, we can't thank you enough for.
Thank all of you. This has been wonderful. I had a great time.
I'm glad
Great
you
time.
did because Lord
Wow.
knows we did.
Really did. Can't wait to see the director's cut.
The 7 hours of outtakes will corroborate
The Oliver Stone-esque
Yes, exactly.
cut of this podcast.
Of course. Well, I am Dan Baker, joined as always by my co-host and brewologist
Steph Hefner.
and our from entertainer.
Squids.
Remember, no Wayne Bakers were harmed in the making of this episode.
Tickle my ear tongue.
Yaz is the party.